Episode 46, man. Appreciate you being on.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
You're someone I've wanted to talk to now for a little bit. Ever since I realized that you were the matchmaker for NFA, and I already spoke with the matchmaker of Shamrock FC, Rob Donaker. But I wanted to kind of speak with you as well to kind of compare and contrast, right? Like similarities, differences, just to kind of get a lay of the land too for what that job kind of entails. Because, you know, the more I talk to you guys, the more I realize I don't want to do it.
No, I'm a fan of yours, as you know. I've been watching the podcast, and you've mentioned a couple times about doing your own promotion, and every time you've said that, I was like, oh, buddy, I don't know if you know exactly what goes into that. So I didn't either until I got, in the matchmaking. So
it's not that I want to have my own promotion, quote unquote. It's just like, I guess because I'm a fighter, or I was a fighter, forgive me. I think to myself, like, there were some things that I would like to change in the current landscape. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where, like, you don't really know how the sausage is made until you get in.
Right.
And then maybe there is kind of like a method to the madness. Like, maybe these things that I think don't make sense, once you're at the driver's wheel, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. You know what I mean? And I think matchmaking is kind of one of those things where it doesn't make sense until you're the one kind of leading the helm. And then you're like, oh, you're just trying to make sure this fucking ship doesn't sink.
Yeah, so I had done it wasn't really a promotion, but Kevin Hahn had asked me to put on some fights at the gym. And so we did that, and everything was legal, sanctioned, all that. That was my first taste of it, but the difference there was he just wanted me to put on fights. So
what year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
Ooh, buddy.
Throwback?
Yeah, it was a little while back. 2000, and we'll say probably around 15, 16. I don't know.
Not too far, but dude, that's crazy. That's a decade almost now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the easy part about that was I just put on fights. So, like, I found people I wanted to fight each other and just put it on. I didn't have to worry about anything else. So when
you guys had it at the gym?
We just had it at the gym, so no overhead. It was still expensive though because it was our first one, so we had to get all the licensing, matchmaker's license, corner license, venue license, ambulance. There's a lot that goes into that. A lot of money has to be put up front. But that was easy. And I was like, oh, I could do this. He talked about doing another one. We never ended up doing it. Later on.
Oh, just a one and done?
Just one and done. Later on, Marlene, who was doing the matchmaking for NFA, she got a promotion at her work. She was having a hard time doing it. Brad's like, well, why don't we take Lance out to lunch and ask him about it? That's basically exactly how it went down. They asked me out to lunch. We talked about it. They asked if I could help. I said, absolutely. So I go in there thinking like how I did the first time. Like, okay, I'm just going to find people that I want to fight, and completely different ballgame. So
why?
One is there's a budget. You get your pros. You got to watch, pros. Two, pro fighters are a lot different than amateur.
Yeah.
Actually, fighter. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. Fighters nowadays are a lot different than they were back even the first time I did this. And
what do you mean by that?
Back then, we kind of talked about it off air. Like, the top dogs wanted to fight the top dogs. You wanted to be number one. Like, I think the highest I got was third in state back when Spire was doing the rankings. I wanted that number one spot, man. That's what I wanted. And now it's like I have trouble getting people to fight. If they're 0-0, they're like, oh, yeah, that'd be a great banger. And then they'll be like, oh, sorry, I found something local. Or, oh, sorry, no, we're going to go a different direction. And I find out they're fighting somebody that's maybe 500.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. MMA is slowly but surely, at least local MMA, because once you get to the UFC or, like, the bigger promotions, you can't really necessarily duck and dive because you have to fight the guys in front of you.
Or
there's no easy fights, right? Or they'll cut you.
Yeah, they'll cut you. Yeah.
But, like, locally, it seems like all these guys think that, like, the way to get into, like, the big show is, get to 10-0 or something like that and then get signed. And I feel like a lot of guys forget that topology exists.
Right.
And then at any time I can look at your record. And, like, granted, I said this with Rob Donaker too, because, like, he uses topology and I look at it as well. And he's like, the average casual fan doesn't. Like, they'll see 8-0, 7-0, and they'll think this guy's a world beater, not knowing that they fought 6 tomato cans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when Benoist got signed, he was 6-0, and everybody's like, how did he get there with only 6 fights? And it's because of who he fought.
Yeah, he fought killers.
There was like 2 guys, I don't remember who they were. There was 2 guys that he fought that they took notice, and then they brought him in. I don't think he was a short notice fight. I think he actually did sign.
No, he got signed.
Yeah, and so I remember they brought him in, but I even remember the first time Joe Rogan kind of burying him a bit, saying like, oh, 6-0 again, there's a lot of experience he's going up against, and he put on a banger. And the next time, Joe actually apologized, saying, I didn't realize his amateur history. I didn't realize like how much he did before he went pro. Like, yeah, this guy's legit.
It was also a different time. Like, I feel like topology is a relatively new. It's not relatively new, but I remember when I was coming up, it was like MMA Warehouse. And then Tapology kind of came up around like near the end of my amateur career, so to speak. You know what I mean? And then when I was going pro, like Tapology was like the thing, right? Now you have like Fight Matrix, like Sure Dog also existed before. There's just so many resources for you to be educated on a fighter now. And I feel like the real way to get into the UFC now is 100% through management, and more than likely staying ready to take like short replacement fights. Because if you look at Garrett Armfield, Evan Elder, Sean Woodson did it through Contender Series. Trying to think of other guys too.
Well,
at least
Evan's a
local
good
guys.
one. Evan even went out of his weight class.
Yeah, Evan fought at 170 just to get the chance at 155. You know, I mean, I think didn't Joaquin Buckley also do like a short like late?
I believe so.
Yeah, he did like a relatively like I think it was like 1 week or something like that. All I'm saying is, if your goal is to pad your record to look marketable, give these guys some credit. I mean, these guys are not the matchmakers for the UFC because they're idiots and they have the same resources that we all have and they can see all the same things we do. Take the tough fights because, and we've seen it. We've seen some guys hit close to it, like close to that echelon, and then get absolutely destroyed because they weren't necessarily ready. And then you'd think it would humble them, but never did.
Being undefeated might get you on the Contender Series, but then you're going to get embarrassed.
The only person that I see undefeated that is like truly a fucking monster is Bashy. It's the only one. Other guys,
you have firsthand experience.
Yeah, I have firsthand experience in that one. He, by the way, just won Contender Series last night.
That's what made me think. I was saying that because Marlene and Brad were asking if I saw it, and I didn't get to see it. But I was like, "Isn't that the guy that beat Domination?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, that's like I knew that name, and I think that's how I knew it."
He's just you know what it is? It's this next generation of fighters, dude. These guys are just Bashy was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu when I fought him, and he was 20 years old.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
crazy.
They grew up. Well, Evan, I started training him when he was 12. Evan Elder, yeah. When I was 12, or when he was 12, not when I was 12. When he was 12 is when I first started training him. So he's been trained since he was at least 12.
Yeah, they're younger guys, but not young in age, but not in experience, which is crazy.
No, and that's the whole difference. They're getting in there as kids, and you're not taking up like when I started. You started in traditional martial arts. You're not now. You're going into MMA gyms as a kid. You're not going into like your easy pay for a belt.
No, or how about the fact that like there's MMA class? Yep. Like it used to be like today's jiu-jitsu, today's boxing, today's wrestling. Like no, it's like today we're gonna work these transitions with the 6-ounce gloves. Put your mouthpiece on, get ready. You know what I mean?
Yep. And then
live submissions, keep what you get, kind of grappling. It's like, dude, this is fucking intense.
Hey, your hands didn't look good last time. You're gonna be stuck with striking with no takedowns because you got to learn how to defend yourself. Counter, yeah.
So you say that the fighters have changed, and I guess what you tried to say is like they're getting more political with.
Yeah, the amateurs are being more like the pros. I guess it's a kind of
even at the amateur level.
At the amateur, yeah. Yeah, even amateur level, I have a hard time getting some people to fight each other.
It doesn't even make sense because the whole purpose of amateur, the whole reason I even still like amateur fighting, because I think if you're gonna fight, get paid. But like I understand also that like you need to have like some sort of feeder to kind of like separate the meat from the chaff kind of thing, The whole reason to do amateur is like to test yourself.
I agree 100%. Like I said, we look at rankings and be like, okay, I know I'm better than that guy. Maybe we weren't. In our heads, we're like, no, I know I'm better than that guy. And I try to fight that guy. I think
go pro if you can't even succeed at the amateur level.
Exactly, and that's the way I felt too. And then some people, Missouri's put a stop to this, but there were people that were going pro after like 1 or 2 fights.
Dude, there was a guy that I saw fight pro that had never fought before.
Yeah,
went pro for a fight, and I was looking at Tim, and I think Tim was like, we can't ever let this happen again. And he, to his credit, worked on the legislation. And now you have to have at least 5 amateur fights and a winning record to go pro. Exactly. Which, can we be honest, you could do 5 fights in a summer.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's not much either, but at least it's something.
And go 3-2.
Yeah, and go 3-2, and then
but it's still better. At least you have experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting some kind of experience out there. And, like a guy like Ray Hayes, some guys that fight that much in a short time can still jump up pretty quick and still do okay.
Isn't he crazy, man? Like just jumped out of I don't want to say out of nowhere, because if you are a fan, like if you watch fights, you saw him come up as an amateur as well. But how many pro fights he's had in such a short amount of time, and how like he's just basically on the cusp now, and I don't think he's been a pro for even a year.
No, I tried to get him beat. Like it's at the amateur level at least. I tried to get him beat, and he made a joke out of me. Like the Dancy fight. I was so excited about the fight.
Dancy?
Yeah, I was so excited, and he climbed him up like a tree in a couple of seconds, and I was like, I know that wasn't Dancy's best. I've seen Isaac fight a lot better, but that one I thought would really challenge him, and nope.
Fighting is such an exciting sport because of that reason. I mean, Sean Woodson said it best. He's like, you could be better than me, like, 9 times out of 10, but that night when it comes time to do it for real, I know I'll win.
Well, look how many triangles too. Like you could beat me, and I could beat someone else that could beat you.
You're talking about MMA math now.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's what some people's like. Oh, he beat him, so he's gonna beat him. No. Completely
Every night
different
is
fight.
different, man.
Completely different fight, different styles. Yeah, completely.
How do you deal with that as a matchmaker? Because like I feel like everyone wants favorable matchups, or at the very least, because like no one wants to take a fight they think they're gonna lose unless they're being compensated for it, which is like a completely different topic. But if you're a true competitor, no one's gonna take a fight that they think they're gonna lose. Now it's like just trying to find fights that they think are tough that they can learn from, but like the propensity for success is still like 60%. Let's say they want majority success possibilities, not minority. So like for you as a matchmaker, how hard is your job to try to find fights for these guys that are, you know, a fight that they think they can win, a fight that they think is like reputable enough for them to even take, a fight that they think they can win, will, you know, get them notoriety and is a good stepping stone for them, and then simultaneously get the other guy that they're going to fight to think that as well.
Well, a lot of it, so it's different between amateur and pro. Pro, most of the time, what I'll do is I get whoever's ready that's local, because that's going to be the ticket guy. Let's be real. And then
When you say whoever's ready, you mean like physically?
Physically, yeah. Whoever wants,
healthy.
healthy, or whoever wants to fight on that show, you know. So, like, last time was Sam, you know, and then I start looking at the states around us to bring somebody in, unless I know there's like a beef, or sometimes if I have a guy that's local that I know, and see, this is where it gets harder because I got to worry about ticket sales too. So if I got a guy that's local,
as a matchmaker,
yes, I can't. So
that sounds like a Brad and Marlene job.
it is. So here's the thing: I can't match anybody without going through Marlene first,
Gotcha.
and I'm okay with that. You know, it's their money, 100%. I'm on board with that. Yeah. So I'm not saying anything negative to that, but there's sometimes I'll get excited about a fight because I'm like, this fight will be a banger. And sometimes she'll be like, I agree, but we need more ticket sales before we make this matchup.
To make the finances make sense.
Fight, yeah. So sometimes I also look at a local guy that maybe doesn't sell tickets, and maybe I'll put him against another local guy that does. Otherwise, I'm looking outside. Unless it's your, like, Dakotas or somebody like that, I'm looking
Dakota Bush.
Midwest, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting to say the last name.
No, I'm only saying...
I'm having a conversation with you, and I'm forgetting about the...
No, you never know. You know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, because we're a small podcast, will all automatically know. I'm just... It's like a force of habit.
So, yes, your Jay Colliers, your Dakota Bushes, you know, people like that I know that will sell just because of where they were alone.
How much of your job is trying to put fights on that you know will be good and entertaining, and trying to make it like a logistical success when it comes to finance?
So it's kind of, I'll say, we'll do 75-25. 25 of them I need to make sure I have like 25% of the fights will sell.
Yeah.
And then 75% are fights that I'm just excited to see.
Do you think that there's a correlation between good fighters and understanding the business aspect, or do you think that it's completely separated?
I think it's completely separated at this point. I think at a time there was, but no. You got all kinds of different personalities. You got some that can sell tickets. Some of my biggest talkers sometimes don't sell tickets.
Really?
Yeah, it's shocking. Yeah, and sometimes some of the nicest guys you'll meet that doesn't ever say anything bad can sell the most tickets. Also, gyms. Sometimes if you come out of a big gym, you're going to sell more tickets because you've got teammates, families, fans of that gym that's going to come through.
Well, I always knew that was a variable, because it was like one of those things where, let's say you have a fight card, right? You say you have like Wolves Den, the Church, St. Charles, whatever. If you put like 8 St. Charles guys on a card, and each one of these guys are trying to sell tickets, like they're going to exhaust the gym and the local guys like immediately. Yeah. So then you're relying on the individual to then go to like their individual fan bases or family members or what have you to kind of sell tickets. So how much of that is a factor? Like when you're matching a card, like thinking like, we got 4 St. Charles MMA guys already, or we have 4 Wolves Den guys already. So like the propensity for ticket sellers, unless they're a juggernaut themselves, is going to diminish with each person that we add, because now those ticket sales are going to kind of split. And then that kind of brings up another follow-up question, but I'll let you answer this one first. So like, how much of when you're putting a card together, we've established that we want to have, competitive fights, obviously, entertaining fights, obviously, but then it's like, we have to make financial sense.
Yes.
But how much of it is also like, how many fighters are we using from what gyms, from whether they're local or not? And then, when you're putting local fighters against one another, having to deal with that. I mean, that's a conundrum as well, right?
Well, here's a good one for you. So I was on vacation one time, and I was drinking a little, and I had this great idea about 2 coaches fighting each other.
Oh, Jesus.
Whew.
Oh, Jesus.
Man, did I make a mistake. So
Gym owners or just coaches?
Coaches.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to get too detailed because I'm friends with both of them. And that's
okay.
one reason why I was like, oh, this would be a banger. And I reached out to their head coaches, because because they're coaches, but they had head coaches. And whoo,
Got spicy.
one of them, one side did. One side was just like, I'm sick of them trying to set us up. And they thought it was their idea. In reality, I was just drinking. I was like, whoa, that'd be a great, I was like, that would be a great fight. That'd be exciting. I know it'd sell tickets because there's two coaches. And yeah, and they thought they were getting set up. And I literally apologized, like, no, that's not it. And then another coach came in and said, no, I think this is misread. I do think Lance was, being honest.
In good faith.
In good faith coming about this, like, yeah. And there was some stuff going on with one of the coaches I didn't know about. So that played into a factor too. So, yeah, so that didn't happen. So that's, that is a thing. Sometimes the gyms, there's issues there. Also, sometimes people are affiliated I don't even know. Like, there's some good people that jump so much, no one will fight them because they're cross-training.
They're friends with everybody.
Yes.
Which is like...
Or the Moriarty, who just apparently doesn't have any enemies, and I couldn't find anybody that hardly ever fight him. So it was always, oh, he's my bro. Everybody's your bro.
Well, I will say that there's something to be said, because, like, that's the next part of this question was, like, I'm very big on trying to promote and build up the local talent, right?
Right.
And that can sometimes be difficult when you have a budget as a promotion, and, you're simultaneously trying to keep expenses as low as possible. Yeah. So the more local fighters that you can get to not have to pay travel and all these other things, A, it's expense, it's a better for you. And then B, if they're local, their chances of selling tickets are higher because they're a local fighter, so they'll have people around that'll make the drive. It's easy to make a 20-minute drive. It's hard to make a 2-hour one, right?
That was one naysay I had when you were talking about, like, how you don't want any local fighters to fight each other. I was like, oh, buddy, that's going to be hard for business.
Listen, I fully
No, I agree with you. It's just it wouldn't work out financially. That's the...
Well, that's why I think I'm a terrible...
You're a terrible promoter.
No, I'm listen, I'm
No, great. I love it. I do. I loved everything you said. But there's a few things you said where I'm like, now that I'm on the other side, I was kind of like, oh, that would be hard. Well, not impossible.
The context was also that if I ever did do it, it would be a non-for-profit.
Right.
And then once you start operating on zero margins, which, by the way, I'm not doing it. So, like, a lot of this is talking out of my ass. I'm saying if one day I decide to take that leap, when everything else in my life, the podcast kind of runs itself and all these other things, and my other businesses run themselves, I just don't have the bandwidth right now. But it is like a dream of mine to one day, like, maybe I buy NFA from Brad, and then run it the way I want to run it. I don't know. Who knows what the future holds? Right. But I think if you truly want to do this, like, the perfect way, you're going to have to eliminate that, like, profit margin, which no businessman would do. Like, who would go into any industry and say, bust your ass, put in all these hours, and then make no profit? No one's going to do it unless the money aspect is already taken care of from everything else I'm doing in life.
No, in good faith, like, I've never seen the books. But I'm friends with Brad and Marlene, and I do know them quite well, and they don't do this for the money. Obviously. They do it because they do love the sport. And so I see some of the hardships with getting a budget out of that, and that's another reason why I'm like, well, they're not even trying to make... I don't know if they're not trying to make money, but they're trying to make a ton of money at least.
No, listen, I'll say this about Brad and Marlene. They fame and glory is not the goal there. I truly think they're doing it as a product of passion. I think that sometimes they get the burnout just as much as anybody else. Yeah. And, they're only doing 4 shows a year. Imagine, if they're doing 6 or 8 or 10. That's one of the things, like, I Shamrock FC, say what you want about them. They're like a well-oiled machine at this point. They're just churning out the shows every month and a half.
They got in early and found the places that will pay you to do it. And, there's a bunch of different reasons.
There's a lot of variables. I agree. But what I will say is, like, you got to... I can criticize them to no end as well, but, like, I do have to give them the credit of, like, they're consistent, right? Now, is the quality of the show consistent? Go to 8 shows. Yeah. You tell me. But that's also the hardest fucking thing to do, because as I'm sure you know as a matchmaker, it's like, and then we'll get to this, because, like, how many guys pull out? How many guys pull out for, like, legitimate reasons? Because, training's hard. How many guys pull out for dumb reasons? Do you have, like, a list of people that you no longer will work with because of these things? Absolutely. So, like,
or I have a list. I'm never a no longer work with you, but I have a list that you're a break in case of emergency person, because you've either, one of two things, you've either screwed me over more than once. I know things happen. I know injuries happen, but if you're a constant, I get gun shy. 2, you don't return you tell me you want to fight and you don't return my conversations. Like, I get it. If you don't like a fight, tell me no, but don't ghost me. And then when you see a fight that you see favorable, you come into my inbox and be like, oh, I'll take that guy. Maybe. Let's see if I run out of options, because you already told me, like, either know so many times or told me what you're looking for and I get you what you're looking for and you're still not happy. That kind of stuff, Like,
how many hours a week do you think you spend on matchmaking?
Well, see, my opinion and my
And
wife's
by the way,
opinion would be two different things.
I would consider, like, if your phone is on and you're talking to people, that's working.
Well, then a lot. Yeah, it's almost a full-time job. Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, sit down, okay, work starts. Because, like, anybody that understands work is, like, if you're having conversations, if you're networking, if you're doing all these things, I consider all that work.
And then there's also times, Brad and Marlene have their own job. So there's times that when we're all available, that's when we can talk.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that not any of us are looking, So no, I would say it's like almost a full-time job, at least a solid part-time job.
Yeah. I can tell you that Rob Donaker also puts in, like,
for sure.
more hours than he would like. And he has a full-time job as well. You know what I mean? Let's talk about that briefly, because a lot of times, the fighters will kind of sit there and say that, like, I'm not a full-time fighter. I'm not making enough money from this to, only be doing this. I don't know a single promoter. Actually, I know one, but he has other things too, so I can't really knock on Jesse too much.
Yeah.
But, like, Rob Donaker has a day job and he matchmakes. You have a day job, you matchmake. Brad and Marlene have day jobs and they do the promotion. As far as I'm concerned, by the way, everything from the production to the state guys, like even a lot of the guys that work the state, they have other jobs as well. You know what I mean? So from, like, top to bottom, it seems like this is a product of passion from everybody involved, from the fighters to the producers to the matchmakers to the announcer to everybody. Like, no one's really making a whole lot of money out of this. Isn't that kind of crazy now that we're saying that out loud?
Especially when you got some guys. There are some guys that give me deals that are like ex-UFC fighters. They'll give me a deal just because they can't find a fight, or they're trying to get back in and they need fights. And God bless them. Thank God they give me a deal so I can make some fights happen. There's plenty of times where I see a fight on paper and I'm like, this is gonna be a banger, and I'll send it to Brad and Marlene, and they'll be like, all right, well, here's what I need, though, because it could flop. I need you to find either a sponsor or find us a casino, something like that. And I was like, I get that. And, and that's one thing. In the beginning, it was frustrating. I was going in thinking I just had to make matches.
How many shows have you done with them now as a matchmaker?
Oh, it's been quite a few, actually. Yeah.
Because they're at NFA. They just had NFA 18.
So I probably came, I don't remember my first, maybe 11.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah, it's been a couple of years. It's been 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And how I started off with them was, so when I retired from coaching, I shut down. I was so fed up with MMA. I was so fed up with the atmosphere. It felt like a high school to me. The drama. I detoxed for like a solid 2 to 3 years. Marlene and Brad are friends of mine. They needed help one day.
Forgive me. When you say detox, you mean stepped away?
I didn't watch UFC. I didn't watch anything.
Oh, wow. Just completely from the sport. Not just
I walked away. No, I walked away. That's how frustrated I was. And I used to be one of those guys, like, even before I became a fighter, I was those guys, like, you can name off a fight and I tell you exactly what happened. Like, I was a student of the game since I was a kid.
Why did you, if you don't mind me asking, I understand you were a fighter, and then obviously every fighter's transition usually ends up being coaching. So what happened that made you...
A few students backstabbed me. This is one thing I hate about MMA too. They'll badmouth you on social media and then call you to apologize. That don't fly with me. No. Well, however you badmouth me, if you badmouth me through text and apologize, we're fair.
Yeah.
But if you go online and you call me out and badmouth me, don't call me. Don't text me. Go on Facebook where you put it. Say, my bad. I was wrong.
They say reciprocate the medium.
Exactly.
If you called me out on Facebook, apologize on Facebook. If you called me out on text, apologize on text. If you word of mouth, then you start saying good things about me.
There was a guy that had a fallout with the gym. It wasn't me and him. It was him and Kevin Hahn. They had a fallout. He starts badmouthing the gym. Okay, that's fine. You had a fallout. I get it. He name dropped me and said, like, Lance Declue could get some too if he wants. So I go on there and said, I got one more rodeo in me. He starts blowing up my phone. And he tried saying, like, Jesse Finney, and Rob Donaker told him to say that use my name. And I knew it was coming because to Jesse's defense, he texted me ahead of time, goes, hey, I'm going to give you a heads up. Your name was dropped in a video that's about to release. Now, he could have just been doing that to stir the pot. I don't know what his idea was behind that. But
I can tell you I've worked with Jesse Finney and Rob Donaker for the last, 5 or 6 years of my career. I have, outside of me, I can only speak for me.
Right.
They were never anything but professional and cordial with me. Everything was paid on time, all these other things. Now, the stories other people have are not the same. But for me, they've never done me wrong.
No, and the same. Honestly, that's why I said. That's why I was like,
it would shock me if Jesse would do, which is funny for some people to hear. But, like, honestly, I will say this: like, I don't think Rob and Jesse never told me what to do. They were just like, hey, buddy, we're gonna put a camera in front of your face, say whatever you want.
Now, me and Jesse always had a better relationship than me and Rob, and nothing negative. Just I would tell Rob no a lot on a few things, or me and Rob would butt heads, and then Jesse would call
Now
me.
you see how that works.
Yeah, and then Jesse would be like, hey, and then usually I get what I want.
Yeah.
That's how, usually Rob just couldn't give me what I wanted, and then Jesse would come in and be like, what's going on? Then
Good cop, bad cop.
Or Kevin would be fighting with them because Kevin has a temper, Kevin Hahn. And then me and Jesse would go on the side while him and Rob are fighting and work out a deal. Like, hey guys, it's done. Just go on.
Yeah,
so
let's move on.
Yeah, but so things like that, like that stuff was going on. The gyms back then would just fight with each other, badmouth each other. I don't think it's as bad as now. It still happens. I don't think it's as bad now. And there was like when we were coming up and fighting too, there was the pressure of like I told you, I kept my eye on you because you're a rising star. I kept my eye on you, and sometimes like you'd be forced, not necessarily forced, but you'd be persuaded to dislike somebody just because, and then you'd find out later on, no, they're not bad people. It's just we were in the same division. We were, things like that. It's the high school drama, man.
Dude, I don't know if it's drama. I think it comes from just
Or teammates fighting. That stuff is
scarcity mindset, because it is like, the local promotions need to use the local talent. So like in a lot of ways, yeah, I mean, we are in competition because we want the same thing, right?
Yes.
So it's like you don't like me, not because you don't know me or anything. You don't like me because I'm after the same thing you are. Yeah. And there's only so many seats at the table, quote unquote. You know what I mean? So it's difficult, but I think what's happening over the course of time is there's been so many people locally that have eaten shit and not made it, that when you do see someone that makes it, like, it's like overwhelming support from the St. Louis community. Yeah. And I think what that's slowly doing is just bleeding, because now the fighters are becoming coaches. Mm-hmm. So when they see the fighters like younger than them doing that, a lot, I see the coaches, I'll know like Jake Roberts, for instance, they nip that in the bud. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey man, we're all just trying to do the same fucking thing. Like, you could be competitive with the guy, but they're trying to achieve the same goal, the same glory, the same dream as you. How can, and I said it before on podcast, like, how can you not have mutual respect for the guys that are in the trenches with you? Yeah. It might be against you on the other side of the battlefield, but it's still a trench. They're doing the same shit. They're weight cutting. They're trying to sell tickets. They're maintaining their health and trying to maintain a job and possibly a family and all these other things. Everyone's trying to do the same shit. I now, outside of the game, and I'm sure you feel the same way, you kind of look back at some of like your thoughts and you think, that was a dumb way to think, but it was, what I was at. It is what it is, so to speak.
There is. So I never was a trash talker. We kind of talked about this off.
Boy, was I.
Exactly, and that's one reason why I wasn't fond of you, because I saw it as a sport, but now that I am more mature and I look back on it, I was like, no, you're doing good business. That's what you're doing. Like, and now that I also know you a little better too, I'm like, no, you're not a bad guy.
No, I'm gonna have to stop you right there. It was never a business thing, brother. I am that cocky motherfucker. I really am. And, I remember I was watching Danny do his podcast, and he was saying, like, some nice things about me. He's like, man, I really thought, like, Arion was a douche and all these other things. But then I met him, and he seemed like a cool guy. And I was like, no. Make no mistake about it.
I still think you're a douche.
Yeah, brother, so do I. No. But what it is different now is that, like, even when I was a fighter, I was only competitive with the 35ers. Like, if you were local and you were 35, I was the same way. I had my eye on you. Yeah. Outside of that, it was nothing but love with everybody. It was only the people that I thought, even if you were a 35er, and I knew I wasn't going to fight you because like maybe you were too young, or I was like 5-1 at the time. It's like, no, you're 0-0. By the time I move on to the next level, we'll never fight. Yeah. It was a competitive thing. It was the scarcity mindset. It's not that I didn't like you. It was just that I knew that we were after the same goal, and there was only so much room in at the table.
That's what like O'Connor and me. So me and O'Connor, like, we never hated each other, but we didn't always necessarily get along, and we hung out one time because I'm friends with his cousin, Justin Langford, and we hung out, and we're like, no, actually,
Didn't you coach Justin? Yeah. Small fucking world.
Yeah. So.
And what's funny about it all as well is, like, in this echo chamber of all these emotions, the driving force of this is the martial art. And what's funny about martial arts is it's like you become the hammer over the course of time, and in that course of time, you're extensively the nail.
Yes.
And we can be competitive. We can be petty. We can be all the things that humans are. But at the end of the day, in a lot of ways, the martial art has honed us, too, to be very respectful and admire someone's work ethic and all these other things. So it's this weird duality of emotions of both respect, honor, dignity, all these other things. But, like, go fuck yourself, brother.
Well, and I'm either friends or was affiliated with a lot of gyms. And, yeah, it's everywhere. And that's why I was like, well, maybe it's just...
Oh, it's not isolated to St. Louis.
No, that was it. That's why I was like, well, maybe it's just this, maybe if I get away, and no.
Go to Coconut Creek. It's like, same shit. Go to California. It's like, Dude.
I've been to Fulton, California. I've been to Las Vegas, Chicago.
It's even more competitive the more population you have, brother.
Oh yeah, Fulton. That was
Go to Florida or California and see what their situations are like.
Yeah, because like in my gym, I was one of the big dogs. I went out to Fulton. They were all big dogs. They were all big. That was CSW under Eric Paulson. They were all big dogs out there.
Oh, dude, you're going from the Midwest to the coast? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that's what I was like. And that's my opinion. I think MMA could be toxic, and that's how I felt. And I was like, I need to get out of this. I'm at an age in my life. I think I was 30, 35, 33, 35 is around there. That all blurs me. And I walked away, and I walked away. I didn't watch. The only time I'd watch UFC is if Evan Elder was fighting, and that's just because he's my little brother, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep an eye on him.
You mean MMA? Because at the time Evan Elder wasn't in the UFC, but you meant
Correct.
the only time you watched
MMA. Period. Yeah. You're right. Correct. So I would just like a Shamrock event when he would be headlining, or if he was out of town, I'd watch it online. That's the only time. And other than that, all my guys by the time I got back into it were retiring or punching bags and all these new top dogs I had to relearn. I didn't know a lot of them. So
then what made you get into, you said that you had like a meeting with Brad and Marlene, but walk me through that.
So before that, there's a thing before that. I'm fully removed. Marlene hits me up and goes, hey, I need help with an event. I think this might have been NFA 8. I'm not sure on the numbers. I don't even half the time they got to remind me before we go on air. Just being honest. Yeah, it's like, punch drunk, whatever. But she's like, hey, I could use some help. Would you mind helping? I was like, sure. And all I did was like open and close the cage, Well, I've always had this passion, and I used to do I always wanted to be like a wrestling commentator. And this was before I got into MMA. I always wanted to be like a commentator. And so this will kind of segue into it. So then I was on her like, oh, let me commentate. At the time, I think it was Adam and Jordan. Drew, I don't think was a part of it anymore.
Adam Sella and Jordan Dowdy.
And then, and then I think Drew from Woolsden was out, he was out of it at this point, but it was them two. And I kept harping, and finally they said, okay, we're going to give you 2 fights, and it's because they're Han guys, and we know you know them because they were students of mine. I said, okay.
As a commentator.
So I'm the third man at this point. So I'm sitting there. I don't know, and I give Adam Sella a bunch of credit for this because I didn't know when I should jump in. I didn't want to step on their toes.
Yeah.
So Adam was very good about presenting me questions and all this, and
getting you engaged.
We started flowing, and all three of us start flowing, and Brad comes over and goes, how did you do? And Adam goes, he's staying. And so I end up doing the whole rest of the show. And then after that, Brad Marlene goes, hey, do you want to stay on? And I said, absolutely. Work a couple shows. Me and Jordan Dowdy start talking a little bit more. And Jordan goes, and this is one of my favorite texts, and I did not take any insult by it. Jordan goes, I was really nervous when you joined. I thought 3 men were too much. He goes, but our chemistry is phenomenal, and I'm glad that we're a team. And to this day, I'm still like, wow, that was like the best compliment I could have got. Because I know Jordan takes his stuff seriously.
I think the world of Jordan Dowdy.
Yeah.
I really
he's my I call him my brain because he's.
I knew him when I first started when I was like 19 years old at CMAA in the basement of that pizzeria, and Jordan Dowdy and his brothers. Yeah. So I think very highly of Jordan Dowdy.
Yeah, and that was one of the best compliments I got, and I was just like, wow, that's when I felt like, okay, maybe I'm doing decent at this.
So commentary was like your foot in the door, so to speak. When did you guys have the conversation about you being a matchmaker, and how?
So
like, how did that?
It was so random. We're sitting there one time. I was always one as I want to be prepared, and Jordan's the same way. Nothing against Adam Sell. Adam Sell's just he's a better talker. He doesn't have to study as hard as we do. And I kept there's one card I was like, hey, we got the card, and the card was very last minute. And what happened was because of Marlene's job, she basically kind of matched it last minute. And I think her and Brad had a talk saying, okay, maybe we can't do this on our own anymore. They asked me out to lunch. I really wasn't sure what the lunch was going to be about because I had also.
You thought you were about to get fired, but in the nicest way.
Well, I had also mentioned that I didn't know how much longer I might be able to do this because I was starting to, me and Montana were getting more serious, and at the time it was a long distance relationship. She was 2.5 hours away, and it was taking up a lot of my time. And she also didn't like that world. No, because it's it's like we talked about, it can be toxic. Well, now she's getting to know more people, so she's got friends. She still thinks it's toxic as heck, and it can be, but she's now knows Brad and Marlene. She loves them to death. She knows more of the crew, so she's more comfortable with everything. But they go, hey, so how do you feel about matchmaking? I go, well, I did it one time. It was stressful, but yeah, I wouldn't be against it. And so we talked it out, did it, and that's when I went in thinking I was going to be able to just match who I wanted, and I realized I had to learn. Had things I had to learn. The
Thanos quote.
Yeah, I had to learn some things, and now I got it down. So now I'm like, okay, which ticket sellers do you want me to get on, and then I get the rest of the card. So we meet in the middle, So
right now, logistically speaking, are you the only matchmaker? Or does Marlene still?
I have to. So Marlene, if she gets somebody she likes or somebody there's certain people that only talk to her because they're used to her. So Marlene will match some of the card, and Marlene, I get my things approved through.
Gotcha.
So if I have a fight, I go to Brad Marlene. Marlene has to approve it. So that's one thing. That's what's funny. Some people will come on there and be like, why would or try to think that I'm sneaking something in, and like it's usually production.
That's hilarious.
It's usually production. Actually, I'll call him out, Matt Frazier. So he'll text me one time and be like, how'd you get this on the card? Or he yelled at me one time because I made the card too big. And I go, buddy, you think I do anything with a Marlene's blessing? And but that was what it was. He was mad because I made the card too big. He's like, you're putting too much pressure on me to get it done.
But you also need to take into consideration that a lot of these guys can fucking drop out day of fight.
Yeah.
So it's I always say, aim for 15 because you're probably going to get 11 or 12.
Well, and Frazier also gets mad at me because I say jits.
Jits?
And it's like, I'm a purple belt under Higan Machado. Higan didn't get mad at me calling it jits.
Oh, you don't call it BJJ?
No, he wants me to say jiu-jitsu.
Is Matt a blue belt now?
I'm not sure, honestly. But I always joke about
Matt,
dude,
shut the fuck up.
And I literally say that. He goes, the Brazilians get mad at it. I go, dude, I'm a purple belt under Higan Machado. He's
also,
never once corrected me. No, and he's never once corrected me. Because if he had, you better believe I would stop saying jits.
Do you think BJJ now is isolated to just the Brazilians now? Because I feel like at this point, it's like a worldwide phenomenon.
I actually have a tattoo that says American Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, it's just at this point, dude, it's a martial art. It's not relegated to the... I love that the title of the martial art will always pay homage to where it... Because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a variation of Jiu-Jitsu, which is from China and the Eurasian Peninsula. But I do like the fact that they put the country in the name, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, forevermore.
For sure. Yeah.
Even if you call it JITS, even if that's the acronym or the shortened that you use, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can name it American Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to name it. The martial art originates as that. And I think there's a beauty to that, but simultaneously, times change. But come on.
And American Jiu-Jitsu, before I got that tattoo, I reached out to Jake Shields and asked for permission. And shockingly, he messaged back and said, no, I fucking love it. But yeah. So
does anyone give you shit?
No.
All right, yeah, I was gonna
say. They asked because my jiu-jitsu was different because I had CSW too. So I had catch wrestling from top and Brazilian jiu-jitsu from bottom. So I did have a different ground game. And to me, I felt it was more American. I was younger too, but I was like, no, this is more American because I got the wrestling involved. I got the, But
maybe it's because I'm a foreigner. I just never gave a shit.
Yeah. I just didn't want to, for one, I didn't want to upset, because at the time I loved Jake Shields and I didn't do a lot of his ground stuff, and I didn't want to upset him by stealing his brand, so that's why I reached out. And he would ever see it anyway. But yeah, I actually got, like I said, I got a reply and he said, no, it's cool. I love spread the brand, But yeah. And then again, Machado never said, he's seen my tattoo, never said anything to me. And
I think the beauty of martial arts is in the replication of the techniques. It's you can sit there and, I called it Peruvian necktie when I got it. I called it the Albanian neck hug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fucking throw whatever you name on it. But at the end of the day, when it's taught, you better believe I called it the Peruvian necktie. Why? Because I wanted to make sure there was the universal title of it. Yeah. Threw my own little spin on some shit. Yeah, cool, that's cute and all that's fun, But at the end of the day, there's there's that base of reality, and you can still be respectful while having fun.
Well, here's the hard part. So when you have multiple coaches at different gyms, so if I'm doing, say, Americana or, Kimura, if I'm with Higan, Americana, Kimura. If I'm with Eric Polson or Ben Jones, those are key locks.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Well, because catch wrestling and folk style wrestling also, that's the other thing about martial arts is it's a Venn diagram. Some shit bleeds. So I by the way, when I first learned jiu-jitsu and they were teaching me Kimura, I was like, oh, that's like a wrist lock. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're like, no, Kimura. I was like, okay, coach.
100%.
Okay, coach.
Absolutely.
Who am I to tell you?
That's exactly, because all three of them can whoop me. And
yeah, exactly.
All three of them have. All three of them has whooped me. So I knew they could whoop me. So yeah, whatever they want me to call it. So
isn't
yes, sir.
It so crazy that martial arts produces just fucking killers that are so emotionally stable that they don't.
Yeah.
It's like this duality of beauty and violence, and I guess that's why they call it a martial and then art.
I had a humbling experience once, and I didn't ask for it, and I didn't think I needed it, but it happened. I was running through a lot of the. I was it was a pro fight camp, and I was running through a lot of the guys, and so Ben Jones said, hey, you're going to team up with me. He's like, you need more of a challenge. And he just wrecked me for the rest of the day, and it was one of those, his pro camps were, 4 hours. So, we were going for, 4 hours, and I was dead, and he was just smashing me. And at the end, I was like, man, what did I do wrong? He goes, no, nothing. He goes, I wanted to make sure your head was where it needed to be. And he goes, thank you for not breaking. And I was thinking, no, dude, I broke like 100 times in my head. I was just like, I was too scared to tell you I broke. So
No, you didn't break though, because breaking is like when you stop.
Yeah, because he would get me in a position and purposely smother me. And there was a few times it hasn't happened to me since I was like a rookie in the sport. I started having panic attacks, but I had to no sell it. And I was just sitting there I started having trouble breathing just because of who was on top of me for so long. Yeah, and I just started, and it did help me though, because I was like, and he told me, he's like, you'll never be worse than what I just put you through for those past 2 hours. Remember that when you go in the cage, you'll never have that kind of pressure because there's a ref there that'll stop it. Also, he was a lot bigger than me too. So like, he's like, no.
Weight classes for a reason.
Yeah. So like, that was the moment I actually really fell in love with Ben Jones as the coach. Like and to this day, there's times like I would message him and talk to him and just we'd BS because it's like, I don't know. There's something he did to me that day, even though it sucked, brought me closer to understanding like how much he actually cared in a weird way. Like he beat me up, and it made me realize how much he cared.
Because I want to talk about your fight career as well. But before we transition from the matchmaking aspect, is there anything else you want to say about matchmaking in general?
I mean, just other than sometimes I hate those coaches that go online and say they'll fight anybody, and then.
Ooh, hold up. Terribly sorry to interrupt the content that you're enjoying right now, but if you've been watching our content for the past couple of months, you realize that Easy Talk is a brand new podcast. We're genuinely trying to figure this thing out as we're going. Some growing pains for sure. If you are genuinely enjoying this content, we feel very humble in that, but we would like to ask that you would also subscribe and like to the channel, simply because it does help us in the algorithms and ultimately to grow. So take a second. I'd really appreciate it. And on with the show. Strategic bathroom breaks are always strategic. But you were talking about how there's a variable in matchmaking that I don't think we talked enough about, and that's like, and I'll bundle these together, management and coaching. Because for a lot of amateurs, obviously their management will be coaches. And I will say this, I strongly believe that fighters should not manage themselves unless they do truly understand the game, and those fighters are so few and far between. But then to piggyback off the conversation we had earlier, to get into the UFC nowadays is all about connections and like late notice replacements and things like that.
Well, you've mentioned a lot. There's like one prime management company.
Dude, Iridium.
Yeah.
It's Iridium.
Iridium, yeah.
If you're not at Iridium, good luck. Yeah. Anyway, for good and bad, right? But anyway, so when you're matchmaking at the local scene, yes, there's the fighter, and then there's the other fighter. Those are the two parties. But then there is the extracurriculars of everybody else behind their corners, from their mothers and fathers to their coaches to their possibly managers. So what is that like? Because I'm sure, do you even talk to amateur fighters, or do you talk to their coaches?
So if I don't know who their coach is, I usually reach out to them. And every time I put a message, I always put, if there's management or coaching you need me to talk to, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go to them.
Yeah, that's when you're making introductions.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Hi, my name's Lance. I'm the matchmaker for yada, yada.
At this point, it's a copy and paste.
Right. And so it's hit and miss. Sometimes sometimes they want it. They'll be like, oh, I'll talk to my coach about that. And then when I meet their coach at the fights, I'm like, hey, sorry I didn't go through you. They want to do it themselves. In the future, should I go through you? Honestly, shockingly, only 10% say, yeah, next time go through me.
Well, that's because that's not for the place of the coach either. At the end of the day, these guys are adults. They're all over the age of 18. It's a weird thing, right? Because it's like the coach should, but they're an adult. If they want to fucking do it themselves.
I'll be honest, as a coach, if you took a fight without talking to me about it, I would usually ream your butt, and you'd have a heck of a camp.
I would disagree with this caveat. If I'm your coach and you want to take a fight and I'm not cornering you, do your thing.
Well, that's it.
If I'm your coach and you want me to corner you, if you're bringing me into this as well, I have a say in this because now I'm a party involved.
And I've had coaches where they'll be like, because I feel bad I'm on a corner, but please call them as independent. I've actually had coaches say that too, and I'm like, deal. He's like, they didn't go through me for it. I don't want to leave them hanging, but don't use my gym name. I've had that a couple times too. So yeah, it depends. It really depends on who. Now, a lot of the bigger gyms that you know of, I go through coaching because it's only right, especially because I know them too. So I can.
Well, that's also the people that you're going to work with day in, day out.
Correct. And I have so many, like the whole. I see so much BS online. The whole like I'll fight or my team will fight anybody. No, you won't. I've had some good matchups, and you've told me no, we need a win, or no, we'll give you a discount if you find us a bum, or things like that. You've
heard that before?
Oh, the exact quote.
We'll take a discount.
We'll take a discount for a bum.
And it goes back to the conversation we had earlier about people trying to pad records.
Yes.
Or maybe get like a fight out of But
at the same point, I agree with the coaches. Like, hey man, my guys had 2 losses. Can we find something a little different? And I'll be like, you're right.
it's circumstantial.
Yeah, you're right.
It depends on the context.
But if you got an undefeated fighter or a guy that has like one,
but the caveat with that is, if that is the case, it is also about the transparency of it. Like, if you are not saying anything and you're asking for this, okay, that's one thing. Let's say your fighter's on a 2-fight losing streak. Is like, listen, we need to get his confidence back. We need a bounce back fight. Cool. Don't get on social media talking a bunch of shit. Or if it's like this guy's not, losing and he is winning and you're talking all this shit, well, when push comes to shove, listen, I feel like perfectly fine to say this because, dude, one of the things I love is when I handled fighting, you can ask any of the matchmakers I worked with. There was never a fight I said no to, ever in my life, from my first amateur fight to my last professional fight.
And that's the way it should be. But there should be somebody there to tell you.
I disagree.
To tell you now.
I wish I would have had someone tell me not to fight Austin Bashy.
Well, that's my point, though. No, that's what I mean, though. As a fighter, what I want from my fighters is somebody that will fight anybody, but I wanted to go through me, so I protect them.
You want to be the one that kind of reins them in a little bit. Okay, but then, like, couldn't the argument be made that these coaches that are saying these things are doing that? Because I'm sure, like, some of these fighters are the type that are like fair. Anybody, anytime, any place.
I get that, but once you hit 3-0, just challenge them.
Yeah.
Challenge them.
I would make the argument that once you've gone pro, challenge them.
Fair.
Or, truth be told, they should have already been challenged at the amateur level.
Right. But a lot of the first pro fights they want almost a gimme. I have a hard time with some of that, too. Not always, but certain gyms, yeah. Oh, they're going pro, but we want to ease them into it. Then why are they going pro? Or I'll have some people that get talked into going pro and they're probably not ready.
Well, when you say ease, because like that's a generic term, because like you can have a guy that's fighting like an 0-0 and an 0-0, right? But then it's like amateur.
So that's the terminology they'll tell me, and then I'll start looking for people, and then they'll find like this is what I'm talking about. And a lot of times it's a guy that I have trouble getting approved through the state.
Tim's like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah, why would you?
And you're like, I agree, brother. What am I doing?
Man, what am I doing? Yeah. So yeah.
What is that like, correspondence with the state? I mean, do you ever let them in on like why you're trying to do this and like?
So first of all, I love Tim Lukanoff, great guy. We have great conversations. We have had some words in the past because sometimes I feel like it's not always fair across the board.
For sure.
I'll be told no in a fight, and I'll see a worse fight made somewhere else.
But isn't that life?
Yeah, it is. No, 100%. Yeah, it is. And Tim will jokingly say. It'll upset me at the times I'm mad, but he'll say, I just expect more out of you. And I'm like, wait, why are you making my life harder? But
brother, I go lower, they go lower.
Right? I'm like, wait, I needed this fight, Tim. So, but no, Tim is trying to make, and we've had sit downs, and he said this before. He's got less of a career than he's had, and he said, when I leave, I want to know that I'm leaving it in better hands, and I agree with that. So that's why he's put in the 5-fight rule. He's been harder on matchmaking.
I like Tim Lukanoff. I sat down and I talked with him, and
as much as he makes me mad, I wouldn't want anybody else.
He at the end of it, I thanked him. I was like, hey, I'm sure you make a lot of people's lives harder, including my own, but thank God you exist, because if it wasn't for you, God knows what would happen.
No, and Tim can be fair also. There's times that sometimes he's like, I understand where you're at.
Can I tell you how highly people talk of him? Of all the guests we've ever had on this podcast, Tim Lukanoff was the one where a lot of people were like, how'd you get Tim? I was like, well, dude.
Yeah.
I
listened. You better believe I listened to
it. I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate. Tim Lukanoff is a beautiful humin being.
He is.
I don't agree with everything he says, but name me one human that you do.
That's why I said we've had arguments, but in the long run, I think he's good at his job.
He's a net force.
100%. Yeah. There's just sometimes where I'm like, dude, that's not fair. So, but it's whatever. Well, so there was one fighter he wouldn't approve, and he said because last time he fought, he went to the hospital. And I said, yeah, I know. I was the one that sent him there.
Jesus, that's awkward.
Yeah, it was very awkward. I was like, but he's training hard. He wants one more fight before he retires, and Tim just wouldn't do it. But at the same time, this guy's not an easy guy to work with either. When he was younger in his career, he was a dick to the state.
You mean the fighter?
The fighter, yeah.
The fighter, okay.
And so I think that's some of it, too.
Dude, how much of this is also educating fighters on how to properly be professionals?
Yeah.
I mean, even the amateurs, because you're trying to train these guys to be the pros that they should be. I will say this. While I have a deep affinity and love for my fellow fighter, because I know what it's like to train and cut weight and make ends meet and all these other things, a lot of them do a lot of shit that just makes me shake my fucking head. And I'm just like, if the goal was success, brother, you could color me blind, because you'd think that the goal was like at your own detriment.
And a lot of people that are upset with him, it isn't fair. There's some people like, oh, he won't let me fight. Well, there's a reason.
You probably shouldn't.
Well, there's one. It's like he'll warn me, and I'll kind of warn them too. I'll be honest with him. He'll be like, all right, but if they lose this,
what does that mean? What does that mean? Warn.
So let's say the guy's had a 3-fight losing streak.
Amateur or pro, or does it matter?
It's both. Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
Irrespective of career.
And Tim will be like, all right, but if this one doesn't come out their way, I'm shutting them down until, I can see an improvement in the gym or anything, and very seldom does that happen. You got to get your coach to buy it for you, and if you flop again, he'll actually take it out on the coach. And that's fair, because you don't want him going to just anybody to sign off on it. And
by the way, how it should be. I think the state should have relationships with these coaches and
I'll agree. So
for Tim.
Yeah, I'll tell that person, and I'll be honest with you. A lot of times, I'll try to find. I have so many street fighters that just nag me to fight.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ!
And so I'll be like, all right, here's your chance.
Do you ever just match them together and see like what should
no, because here's my thing. We are blessed to be in a position where people want to fight first.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste that spot.
No, that's
but
beautiful thought.
Let's say I do have somebody that maybe I like, or maybe that's a good ticket seller or something. I'm like, all right, so here's the deal. I'm going to get you this guy, but I'm telling you right now, if you train your butt off because the state's looking at you, and sometimes they'll lay an egg, and I'll be like, dude, you lost to a 0-0 street fighter, an independent guy. He lost to an 0-0 independent guy, and I'm not trashing any independent guys, but a lot of times independent guys don't train. They're what we call weekend warriors, or used to call weekend warriors.
Weekend
warriors,
not
warriors.
Weekend.
No, sorry, weekend. It goes either way. But yeah, weekend warriors, to where you train or only fight on weekends and you don't really train. And yeah, so sometimes Tim has merit. So like a lot of these guys that badmouth him, I'll see him badmouth, and the state won't let me fight, and I'm in my head, I'm like, I know why, and it's a good reason, because you didn't take it seriously.
A lot of times when the coaches and the individuals won't step in, you do need a third party, and like Tim is like the necessary evil at this point. I don't want to say necessary evil, but like the necessary force, right? It's like the fighter doesn't know what's in his best interest or hers. The coaches maybe not the most respected, or doesn't have necessarily the accolades to possibly be a good coach, right? The promotion is more than willing to take advantage of this person, and so it's like you do need a state to kind of step in and be like, hey, we got to protect everybody from themselves.
Well, and also
he said it best. Tim was like, when I get emails or when I get people send me things, it's like, what do I say to the families, or what do I say to a reporter if someone dies in the cage? What is the excuse that I'm gonna have to give them?
Well, that was one of our fights. I made the mistake of a coach got mad because there was a fight that we were going to book, and Tim said no, and I had to go to them and tell them, sorry, Tim won't approve this. I kind of thought he wouldn't anyway. It was one of those where I got talked into.
And you were hoping the state would stop it.
And they go, that's BS, blah, blah, blah. And I go, talk to Tim about it. Oh, I should never said they talked to Tim about it.
Oh, they sent Tim an email?
They sent him an email, and then I got blown.
Oh, Tim said, what the fuck? Why are you sending these guys to me?
Yeah. So.
That is fair.
Yeah. I was like, well, you told him no, man.
From some dummy, I'd be like, Lance, never do this again.
Nope.
I never thought about a lot of the aspects of matchmaking until I talked with you and Rob. It's still to this day is, if I ever did a promotion, it would be the only thing I would outsource.
I want you to keep me honest too, because we've talked about this offline. When you asked me about how I matchmake, I want them to be competitive. I want to be, and I'm not taking a shot at anybody, because there are some good matchmakers out there, but there's some that aren't. I want to be different. I want to be one of those where even if the records don't look right, and I got a story for that one too, but even if the records don't look right, that the fights are at least competitive.
Well, styles make fights.
Right.
Would you say that you're unbiased is my question?
I try to be. Yeah, I try to.
That's an
no.
answer.
I try to be. I can't. Am I all the time? I got there's friends.
You got horses in the race still.
No, yeah.
No, if you would have told me yes, I would have called you like, hey, you're lying.
What I will try my best to do is make sure it's somebody that can beat them.
Dude, I'm out of the game completely, and I'll see some friends fight, and I still lose my shit.
No, and I'll be like, I'll try to get some. I'll at least do the very least to get somebody that can win. Not that I think they will win, but that can win. Like
that's a broad statement though, Lance, because everybody's got a puncher's chance. So like
I don't mean it like that though.
Okay,
I mean like
fair.
No, I mean like there's a weakness that they can exploit.
Oh, you see an avenue to victory, a legitimate avenue to victory.
Are they the underdog? Possibly, but I do see they can win.
Very few fights are truly 50-50.
Correct.
So
one of them, Bryce Kaiser, our champion.
Is it not Kaiser?
Or, it might be Kaiser. I don't know. Jake Kaiser. Is it Kaiser or Kaiser?
I don't know.
I always joke and say they're brothers or not, but yeah.
Names
he was one of them, man. Everybody ripped on me for putting him up against Wilborn. because he was 2-3 and Wilburn I think was 7-1, something like that. And I go, no, I've seen this kid.
He's legit.
He's legit. Like his Muay Thai fights, like yeah, he's had a rough go at MMA, but like he's trained, he's gotten better, and he ended up
beating
him pretty good. And that's nothing. I tried forever to get Wilburn in that title fight, and that's why I ended up settling. And I finally talked Marlene into letting me put that one on, and thank God Tim approved it. And yeah, he went out there and put on a clinic.
I always say this about MMA. It's so tough because there's so many ways to lose that remaining undefeated is a question of time. You will lose unless you're John Jones, or Khabib. But Khabib could be the argument like he got out in his prime, right? We were talking earlier about records and Tapology and things like that, and that's why I like these resources, because the guy could be 2-3, but he could be a college wrestler, or he could be whatever his amateur boxing record is. And when you look at a fighter, it's like you have to cumulatively dissect everything separately. So take them together and then rip them apart and say like, okay, this is his wrestling, this is his, or like grounds, stand up, cardio, athleticism, mentality, all these things. And I think a good matchmaker will see the aspects of a fighter and pose strengths to weaknesses accordingly. Yeah. Or strengths to strengths. Maybe they're both two good strikers, and it's going to be a banger. Or two good wrestlers that might stand and bang. Or two good strikers, and maybe one guy's like just got a brand new jiu-jitsu coach and he's going to show you some shit.
Well, that's one thing Marlene goes, this fight doesn't excite me. Tell me how Bryce wins. And I said...
Oh, wow, that's actually very educated for her.
I said, for one, his Muay Thai is really good. I shouldn't say phenomenal. That's for the Aleshion, the top people, but like it's really good. And she goes, yeah, but Wilburn takes him down and pounds him. I go, there's a lot of things people don't know about Bryce. He has a wrestling background. Nobody knows that. Yeah. And the reason why I found out is he told me the fight he had fought for us once before, and he looked good. I didn't know who the kid was. He came from Illinois, and I was like, wow, this kid's got something. And that's when I kind of pushed it. No one would fight Wilburn other than people that's already fought him.
Can you talk to me briefly about your job as a matchmaker to kind of also facilitate talent to the next level? Do you ever feel like you have a responsibility to the fighters to match them in a way that will get them set up for the next level?
Yes. So that's one thing, and this is on Marlene's credit. She's very big on making sure we build our amateurs to hopefully go pro for us. That's obviously what we'd want. But no, we try to build up amateurs to go pro.
You guys don't have restrictive contracts on 3-fight deals for these amateurs to go pro? Interesting. Funny how that works.
Yeah, no, that's always a... You know how I feel about that already.
I signed one of them.
Huh?
I signed one of them.
Yeah, that's...
Luckily for me, I'm the enigma.
I strayed that bullet, as we talked about.
Well, dude, I'm like the outlier. I was the one that didn't get burned in spite of, not because of. You know what I mean?
They tried, and I just wouldn't. And I knew I was also willing to travel to fight other places. I'm not one of that has to stay home. I don't mind fighting in Texas. I've been to Texas. I've been to Kansas. I've been to, it's actually sometimes it's less pressure. I'll be honest with you. You go out of state, it's a lot of less pressure.
I'm sure because you're also, it's like just the logistics of it is such a nightmare for me personally because I was going to school full time.
That's the difference.
When I was an amateur, and then after I graduated, that's when I went pro. But then I was working full time. It was really hard to get PTO for a local fight, let alone, hey, I got to take a week off because I'm going to travel. They'd be like, go fuck yourself. You work for us.
I kept it a secret from my work.
Did you? There's no way I could, bro.
My fourth fight, I won.
Binged up?
But I got binged up. I won, but I kept hitting.
You fell down some steps that weekend?
Buddy, I hit 3 arm bars and got pile drived all 3 times. And so what happened was I hit the first arm bar and he tapped and I was dumb and let go. And then he just started hitting me, and I'm looking at the refs like, he tapped, and the refs like, I didn't see it. And I'm sitting there getting duck. And so I throw up another one. He just starts dropping me on my head, And I remember going in to the corner, and my coach was like, he's like, how you feeling? I go, Coach, I'm tired. And he smacked me. And he points over him, and the other guy was also hung over. He's like, you don't think he's tired? And I was like, I never again. And so later on, I made my pro...
I'm tired. Never came out of his mouth after that.
No, it didn't. In my pro debut, I was tired because in my head, this is why, even though I trained, was in great shape, in my head, it hit that 3-minute mark, and my body was like, why are we still doing this? Shouldn't there be a round break?
You need to shut down.
Yeah, because, for those that don't know, we go from 3 minutes to 5. And I was like, yeah, I was in the best shape of my life, but all of a sudden, that 3-minute mark, my body's like, why are we still doing this? Shouldn't there be a buzzer? Where's the buzzer? So we go in the corner, and Coach Hahn walks up and he goes, hey, how you feel? I go, I feel great, Coach. Coach Greenlee walks up and waits till Kevin turns around and goes, "How do you really feel?" I go, "I'm fucking tired of shit. Like, I'm dead." He goes, "All right." So he starts rubbing me out, get me loosened back up. But yeah,
I need to clip that. He started rubbing me out, loosening me back up. Yeah. That's a clip.
Phrasing.
Context is key.
Yeah, context is key. But yeah, so that came to play later on in my pro career. I was like, I'm never saying this again. But yeah, I got dropped on my head a bunch, and I ended up with a concussion so bad I was thrown up for a month.
Jesus Christ.
And so after a week of it, I went to the doctor, and I was like, I just keep throwing up every morning. He goes, well, one of two things. Either you're pregnant, and you're going to be a rich man. I was like, let it be.
Was this 2024?
No, this
was... Well, pregnancy's gone.
Damn. This was 2012.
Listen, brother, female cocks are just as important as...
This might have been 2011-ish.
Okay.
And I go, let me be pregnant. I'll be rich. But he's like, or you have a concussion. I was like, oh, man. He's like, and...
Dude, a bad concussion.
Yeah. And he's like...
I don't know if you listened to the episode with Junaid, but we were talking about that specifically for like an hour. It was basically about like brain damage. And I thought for sure I had CTE. And like afterwards, we had a discussion before. We obviously had the discussion during the podcast, and then we had a discussion after. After speaking with Junaid, I'm convinced that I actually don't have CTE. It was just like one of these things that like...
Yeah, I don't really know how all that works. I always joke and say that,
Well... we were the ones that were closer to susceptibility for it because we were the lighter weight classes that were more susceptible to consecutive concussions
think about our weight
without
cut.
being put away. And the weight cut. I will say this. I mean, the weight cut is universal. I mean, like, even if you're 215, I'm sure you're cutting from, like, 240, right? Yeah. So, like, dehydration is universal. Unless you're heavyweight. Yep. God bless.
So I missed work for a week. So the doc had to have a doctor's note. So I went in and I go, hey, guys, here's what's been going on.
I'm pregnant.
No, yeah. So I went to HR and I was like, hey, guys, I understand you're going to be mad at me, but this is what's been going on.
By the way, what do you do for work? Because that's also context. Because
at that time, I was a...
male stripper.
No, I wasn't that. I couldn't dance.
I looked good, but
I had abs then, but I couldn't dance. I'm trying to think. So I've been throughout the bank. My banking's my real job, and I've been throughout all of banking. So I got thinking about that. About that time, I think I was a assistant branch manager. I believe I was assistant branch manager at the time.
Like commercial banking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
not like venture capital or...
No, this time was Eagle Bank, who's no longer around. But yeah, it was Eagle Bank and Trust.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. So I went to them and they were just like, why didn't you tell us? We would sponsor you.
Oh my God.
And I said...
So you're like, fuck.
I said, well, I go, wait, what? They go, no, yeah. And so we made a deal. As long as I put them on my fight shorts, they would let me off 2 to 3 weeks for camp.
No shit.
No, yeah. So that didn't... So
maybe the coolest employer, also why they're no longer around.
No, they're not around for... They just got a good offer, and they were...
Oh, they sold out? Good for
them.
And
the restrictions were getting too hard with the way they like doing banking.
Dude, I could do a whole podcast on...
So they didn't want to change their ways, and the government was going to back down, so it's just best that they said goodbye and handed it to somebody else, the keys to somebody else.
God bless.
Yeah. So, and now I'm with Enterprise Bank and Trust, who bought them out, and they're also amazing. They no offense to Eagle Bank, because they did me a solid there, but they're the best employee bank I've ever worked hard. Like, they...
Still work there?
I do, yeah. Okay. That's what I do now.
Totally unbiased.
I'm
fucking with you. I'm fucking with you.
I'll put it this way. I passed over a lot of
other
opportunities because of my bosses and because the bank is very big on life work. I've never had somebody like that.
God bless.
Yeah, I get in trouble if I don't take my PTO. And if I take my PTO, like, if they catch me on, they'll shut my crap off.
I always say this, too, about capitalism is, like, this interpretation of capitalism that a lot of people hate on. We don't have capitalism in America. It's like the fallacy of it or the illusion of it. But the small businesses do, because they still have to compete. The monoliths, the Goliaths, they know that they're too big to fail. Yeah. They know they'll get a buyout or a bailout. So, like, they know that they can kind of, I don't want to say do anything, but skirt the lines. But the small industries, the small businesses in industries, they know that they're still competing for every crumb that they are getting. And there's a beauty to that, and good for them for doing that. I also work for a smaller company, less than 100 employees, and I don't think let me put it this way. If I left my current employer, it would not be for anybody else. It would be to work for myself. Yeah, because I like working there so much. Yeah, and they also do the same thing. Take care of... Dude, they're allowing me... I had a long conversation with my boss and say, like, this is the podcast that I want to do. And he looked me right in the face. He's like, cool. Just don't let anybody know where you work.
And a lot of it, too, is like, I've had bosses that were old school where they yell at you. Like the old classic business people.
Good luck.
Right. I've actually, honestly, there's one time with the boss.
Does that work for you?
No. So there's one time with the boss, and he told me the reason why he hired me was because of somebody else, basically. And I'm not going to divulge names. And it was a very personal situation, and he basically just said, "I'm lucky to have a job." And he goes, and I got upset, and I actually put in my 2 weeks. And the CEO came to me and goes, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "I heard you're leaving," and I said, and this actually was at Equal, and I said, "Yeah," I was like, "This is my boss said this to me." I was like, I ain't about that." Next thing I know, he said, "If I get you a new boss, and he gave me a raise, will you stay?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll work." And so that happened. Well, I got called into my old boss's office 2 weeks later, and this is what this MFer decided to say to me. "I thought you have thicker skin because you're a fighter."
Go fuck yourself.
No, this is what I did.
Go
and
fuck
so
yourself.
and I'm not very I'm not a confrontational person usually, but I put my fist on his desk and I kind of stood up and I go, "That's because as a fighter, I get my hands on them at some point." Yeah. And then I walked out, and that's the last me and ever talked. And I never talked to him again after that. And
this is why I think
that he ended up getting fired later on. So
everyone should either work a service job, like waiting tables, military service of some sort, or learn a martial art. These three things, whenever I look at all the people in my life that I genuinely love, have one of these three things. Or if I really love them, they have multiple, right? I think there is something to be said about service in general, or knowing what it's like to be the nail. Because when you finally become the hammer, you realize you're like, oh.
There's also a boss. I tore my hip
flexor back a little bit.
I tore my hip flexor in a fight and couldn't walk. And they said, and so I called in. It's like, "Hey, I can't walk. I can't. Oh, we'll get you a chair and I'll have somebody push you around."
Go fuck yourself.
No, man. I have sick time for a reason. So now that Enterprise treats me the way they do, it blows me away.
I will also, in terms of keeping this conversation honest, I will also, as an employer, I've had employees that have felt incredibly entitled that I've had to fire. There was one individual in particular that was like, I was overpaying them for the position because I wanted them to feel secure with the work and all these other things. And when I tell you just constantly underachieving, constantly moving the goalpost, delays after delays and all these other things. And finally I was like, when the day came that I fired her, I never liked firing anybody because I always thought to myself, fuck, man, how many things am I having to move around in their lives by doing this? Yeah. And when I hire people, and more importantly, when I give people a paycheck, it feels fucking great. I'm very happy that we're doing something and it's making money and I get to pay you and this is awesome. Let's fucking keep this up. So it's kind of I hate when things don't work out. Does that make sense?
No, I get that.
However, with this one individual, it felt very vindicated to be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and there are people like that, and I get that. But yeah, that just...
Vast minority.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people are amazing. Yeah. And hardworking, honest. They want to do the right thing. Life happens. Shit happens. Yeah. You have to accommodate accordingly. And that's what I think is being a good leader. It's not necessarily trying to get everybody up to a certain level, but it's trying to get them to peak when you need them to. Because everybody's fluctuating. No one's at a static 8.
I had a boss that called me and goes, "Hey, I want to give you a laptop." I was like, "Oh, why?" They're like, "I want you to be able to work from home sometimes." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." What they meant was when I'm sick, so they can call and look up stuff. So when I started with Enterprise, they gave me a laptop, and I got scared. And I was like, "Wait, why am I getting this?" Well, if it snows or something and you can't make it in, and because my clients are...
That's also a good employer who understands that shit can happen, but he still wants productivity. Yeah. So how can I allow you to still be productive?
Yeah, and that's it. So if something goes wrong with the house, oh, no, stay home. Just, if I'll call you if I need you to please keep your laptop on. Last time they don't call me.
This is completely out of left field, but what do you think about hybrid or remote work?
I think it's great. Honestly, so when COVID happened, Enterprise, a lot of us went to remote. And they realized...
fully remote, meaning 5 days a week, work from home.
Yeah. And now I'm a little hybrid now, but that's on my own choice. They don't mind if I stay home, but I realized this year, I walked in and saw a branch manager, and they're like, "Oh, I've known you for 3 years, our first time meeting," and I kind of felt like crap.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, well, I get it. So I now I go in, I try to go in once or twice a week at least.
For me personally, it's once.
Yeah.
Because I want to still show face, I want to have the networking and all this other stuff. But for the purposes of my work, it's 100% digital. So where I work really doesn't matter. And I'm sure it's the same for you.
It is, yeah. And so then, they noticed the work it went up. Productivity went up. And they saved money on brick and mortar. Because we were busting at the seams. We had too many people. So some people should have had offices that were in cubes.
You want to talk about the bubble that is commercial real estate? I don't think that when COVID happened, I don't think these companies, industries realized the amount of pressure that would put on them in terms of so real estate. When someone says real estate, there is a residential aspect and a commercial aspect. Residential is the home that you live in, the apartment that you rent. This is all like residential real estate. Right. Even though you might not necessarily own it, someone does, whether it's a bank, an individual, what have you. Commercial real estate is similar in the sense that someone owns that building, but different in the sense of, like, use of. Usually rentable. Very rarely will you see like a 24-foot skyscraper that's like, one company is using it, unless that company specifically built it for that reason. A lot of these things are like, floor 2 through 5 is Centene, floor 6 to 8 is this industry, maybe floor 7 is just this one law firm, right? So like they're renting out this space. And one of the things that COVID did was essentially just make commercial real estate just tank. However, the banking side of it had not changed. So what happens when supply remains unchanged and demand just drops off the face of a cliff? The price of diminishes greatly. And a lot of these people, what I think the average American doesn't necessarily take into consideration when they're handling finances or business or anything is the power of debt. And there's commercial debt, and there's what I would call like CapEx and OPEX, right? Operational expense and capital expense. Operational expense is what you have to pay in order to make money. Capital expense is what you have to pay in order to make money.
Right.
I don't want to go back to 5 days in the office because I don't think it's actually conducive to like a healthy work-life balance or any of these things. And I think once you've kind of let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. However, the economic ramifications for the commercial real estate sector will affect us at some point. I don't know if it will affect us as strong as '08 with the residential housing market, but I know that at some point these banks are going to ask for a bailout because the astronomical losses that they're going to have to show on their balance sheet. There was a building in downtown St. Louis that's like 3 years ago sold. I forget the name of the building. Forgive me. Adrian, will you do me a favor? Will you Google downtown St. Louis real estate, like skyscraper crash or whatever? There was a building downtown that sold for like $200 million. I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago. The bank that owned it had to sell it for like less than $3 million. I think this past year or something like that. That's over the course of 24 to 36 months. That's insanity.
And I'm really proud.
And that's in like the Midwest. Imagine the coastal areas.
Well, so that's one thing. Like sometimes I get annoyed when people come at me because like, oh, you're a bank, you're part of the problem. No, I work for a bank that we actually did good during the hard times because we had people that didn't break their morals, that didn't go outside the bubble and extend themselves. They were very, this is what we want. We kept. When
you say good, you mean like in terms of financial analysis, in terms of regulating their leverage.
They didn't get greedy. They kept in their bubble. They didn't overextend. They didn't,
Well, because you have to, because you're a small bank. You're actually beholden to these metrics.
Right. And so, like, that's why it annoys me when everybody's like, oh, banker. No, not all of us.
There's like 4 banks.
Yes.
That you really should be mad at.
Yeah. So that's like, we didn't get any bailout.
Do you got something, Adrian, or not yet?
Yeah, who knows if it's actually
Yeah, do your thing.
Who knows if it's actually a credible source, because of course Reddit is the one that comes right up. Yeah, give me a minute.
Was it like Millennium, I believe it was called, or something like that? I don't know. All I know is that commercial real estate across the board throughout the U.S. is, I don't want to say crumbling, but you're starting to see an uptick in hybrid work versus remote, because it's a reaction to this commercial sector basically saying, get your guys back in this fucking office to create artificial demand. But the problem is, I'll tell you from my perspective. Let's just say someone gave me an offer right now that was double the money that I'm currently making. I'd be a fool not to take it, right? If it was not fully remote, or at the very least hybrid was 1 day work from home, I wouldn't accept it. There's no price to pay for me to go back in the office 5 days a week. Or at the very least, the amount that you would have to pay me is so astronomically high, you wouldn't realistically do it.
Well, and honestly, I work harder. And what I mean by that is, like, when I'm at the branch, I'll get stir crazy and, like, so I'll take my lunch and, go somewhere. If I'm at home, I'll eat and work.
Yeah.
Because why not? Or I'll lose track of time because I'm working, I'm comfortable, and all of a sudden I'll look and be like, oh, I could have quit an hour ago.
Not just that, but it's such an easy. So when there was a moment in time where my employer didn't have it, and then I was trying to negotiate with them. Not negotiate with them, but we were having a conversation over lunch, and I was like, you realize that, like, by you not offering remote at the very least, hybrid. Right? At the very least, hybrid.
Yeah, we got meetings.
You're going to have to pay people so much more because now you're competing with people that are going to pay them less, but they're going to offer them hybrid. It is no expense to you, yet it gives so much value to the individual.
And you could save
now
money.
all we're really arguing about, I don't know many positions. Granted, I work in a very digital field. So if you're like blue collar work, I get it. This has nothing to do with it. Forgive me. But if you're in the white collar sector, like anything of accounting, HR, ITIS, anything like that, this does affect you. And I'll tell you this right now. There's not a single employer that I know that isn't offering hybrid as the minimum. And it could be 1 day work from home a week, whatever. 5 days a week work from the office is dead in a lot of sectors, with the exception of the highest earning ones. And I always say this, there's no such thing as a bad job, only a bad salary.
Right.
So if you're paying me $500,000 a year, I'm not bitching about going into the office 5 days a week.
No, that's true.
Because now you're paying me a premium to not bitch.
You're still giving me a good
But when
lifestyle.
you're making $15 an hour, yeah, bitch.
Yeah.
Fucking
Because
bitch.
my lifestyle is me being home.
Oh, dude, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, no. But yeah, that's so, like, again, we saved because obviously we kept the branches because we need those. But, like, we had a lot of office buildings because we were overstaffed. So you save on, the electric AC, the real estate. And so, yeah, I mean, they realize, oh, wait, our employees appreciate us more. They're working harder, and we're saving money. So
The caveat to that is how many guys are masturbating 6 times a fucking day working from home? How many women are like
This is the
rearing
way-
children? It's like,
this is the way I look at it, though. They're getting their work done.
Are they though?
Someone's watching them. Like my staff, I keep an eye on. So.
Fair.
Yeah.
So here's what I will say: if metrics are still being delivered upon, then yes. But then there's like this great conundrum of like, so I know people specifically that work like 2 hours a week, literally work 2 hours a week, hard, right? Like sit down, answer emails, or like 2 hours a week, and they're making 6 figures.
Yeah.
If these people had to go back into the office, it'd be mind numbing because they're trying to give up the illusion of like productivity, or at the very least, perhaps like through the advent of work from home, they created efficiencies that they didn't necessarily think were available because they wanted to increase the amount of free time that they had. Right. So it's like, it goes back to the thing that you're saying of like, well, if everything that I'm wanting done is getting done, what does it matter? If they were in the office still achieving the same level of productivity, you could get rid of like 5 of the people in the team and still keep the same level of productivity and be more efficient and be more profitable.
So yeah, in my case, I couldn't do that because a lot of mine are regional stuff.
So they're still tied to a like specific location.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's like to me it would be a little different. But yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. But that doesn't work in my.
Fair. The nature of my work is a lot of automation and a lot of coding. So it's like I do the work of like 10, but then I'll make it look like the work of 1. So it's like I save them money with everything that I'm doing. So I guess my whole thing is fixated around this culture of efficiency.
I even had some of my employees, that they do things where it's like reports or anything that doesn't do with clients, and they'll have something that happens, and I'm like, that's fine. I was like, go take care of it. It's like, and then you can come back and finish. As long as I'm getting what you need done on at the deadline, I'm not going to harp you. I don't. Because it's not affecting me.
That's a great conundrum too, because you don't want a single point of failure, but you want efficiency. So you can't have too few people that if something happens, something doesn't get done.
Yeah.
But you don't want so many people that you're now being inefficient and running up expenses.
Correct. Yes.
And that is
Because
what your COO needs to be dealing with and figuring out. That's why they get paid the big bucks, because they're the ones who need to adjust that pendulum accordingly.
Yeah, your kid has a swimming pool party you want to go to, but it's during working hours. But working hours is just working hours. They don't really, you're not really necessarily, you got things you got to get done. Fine, go do that. But
you don't feel like you work 24 hours a day?
But I tell you a lot. Oh, no, I do. Yeah. I do like right now, like I could, look at my phone. There could be work stuff on it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a little different. But like for like my staff, I'll be like, yeah, go do the party. But do me a favor when you come back, jump on and make sure.
Are you in a management role currently? Or?
I am, yes.
Okay, that's a different story.
Yeah.
That's a different story because now I would say that a management role is half and half. Half of it is your work, yes, but the other half is people.
Yeah, I run the whole operation side of the credit card department for enterprise banking.
Okay, so you're dealing with people more than anything.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's why I said it's definitely job to job. It depends on, I can't have a teller just dip out because they're in front of.
They have to hold down the fort.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is very fair, man. Yeah. Forgive me, we went down a small.
We did.
Rabbit
So
hole.
back. So I got dropped on my head. So that's how work. that's how work found
My
out.
brain don't work too good.
I'll also remember how I won the fight. I remember I was so tired, and if you watch the video of it, I put my hands on. I have him up against the cage. And I know he's stuck, and I take a break. It's hilarious. You literally see me go, oh, and then you
Air is good.
Then you hear my coach go, don't you quit on me. And I come back up, and I clinch him, and one of my cornermen yell, knee. And he goes on the block, and he leaves me in the necktie. And I grab that thing. I threw him over my head, and you can see me look at the ref and say something to the ref. And it's because he tapped earlier, and it didn't happen. I look at him, I go, either he's going to tap or he's going to sleep. I'm not letting go. And the ref got right in there. And you see the one tap, and then he went out. Yeah. And the ref's like, ah. Unfortunately, later on, that caused somebody else pain. So ever since then, I told myself I'll give them a breath. So, like, I'll hit a submission, I'll breathe, and I'm going to take it if they don't tap or if if the ref doesn't stop it. Because after that, because the injury I went through, and that's not malice to anybody that I fought. It was because he'd been honorable because he tapped and been like, hey, I tapped, I wouldn't have got dropped on my head as much as I did. Because I was dumb and I let go without the ref stopping it.
So that when you say the injury you took, you're talking about the 1 month of like throwing.
Okay. So later on, I'm in a title fight, and I hit a guy in an armbar, and I know it's in, and he's tapping my butt, and the ref doesn't see it. Well, I popped his arm out of place, and I did feel bad. He starts screaming, and I look up the ref, and go, I think I broke his arm. He goes, well, then let go. And I was like,
no, that's on the ref.
So the ref runs in, and
Can we talk about what happened in the last NFA with like Javier and the fucking?
Oh, you mean when I had to look back at you and be like, hey, chill.
Listen, I will never poop on a ref for getting a call wrong, but I will poop on them for how they react to getting a call wrong. So, like, there was a knee that was clearly legal that he assumed was illegal. Duly noted. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you then are presented with information that makes you resolute in the thought that, okay, this was legal, the very least you can do is put them back in the very same position that they were in before you interrupted the action, right? To interrupt the action on a false pretense and then to reset the position is like an astronomical failure, the likes of which I haven't seen since Mazzagatti.
Right.
It's...
So...
forgive me.
No, yeah. I remember somebody yelling behind me. I turned around, it was you.
I was losing my shit because
you were definitely losing your shit.
These moments as a fighter, you know that any fight can be turned over on a split second. And he was getting his ass beat for 2 whole fucking rounds. Yep. Finally gets this 45 seconds left on the clock. Yep. Make it or break it, my dude. This is your opportunity. And life has given you this opportunity. Take it. And now it's been robbed from you. Quite literally robbed from you.
And I love the kid too. I do. I think
he's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
And no disrespect to his opponent. This has I'm not saying I'm not saying Javi would have won.
His opponent, I taught him in the very beginning of his career. He's a Han guy. So I had
great fighter. By
the way. I both guys I have a relationship with, just differently. But yeah, no, and we talked. I was like, man, no, Javi could have taken that fight at that moment.
You just don't know. So, and that's when you're in those positions, man. Let them fucking fight. And if you do want to get in for fighter safety, I'm never gonna get on any ref.
Especially it's amateur too.
Yeah. So like, I'm not knocking him. I need to make sure this like resonates. I'm not knocking him for making the wrong call. I was screaming that it was legal.
Yeah.
And once he saw that it was legal, the fact that he stood them up, that's when I lost my shit.
So Tim came over to me again, talking about Tim Lukanov. Again, great guy, right position. He came over to me. He said, hey, what did you see? I said, I saw a legal knee to the chest. He stood him up. I thought at the very least, if he made a mistake, he should put him back into that
same position.
In the same position. Tim goes, okay, let me go talk to him. Tim comes out, goes, he said he saw a legal knee.
No.
So it's his
So he's lying to save his own ass.
Or he was out of position.
No, he was out. But then if you're out of position, then you don't fucking know. Yeah. So say that there's a metric for possible failure. Because from my position... and from the position of the cameraman, that shit was legal. And here's the thing. You can get away with this shit like 10 years ago. 10 years ago before, like, I remember when I first started fighting, you were lucky to have a photographer.
Yes.
There was no instant replay. There was no fucking giant screen behind you that you could see this shit. You know what I mean? So if a ref made a wrong decision, you kind of got to give it to him because there's no tools to his advantage, right? You can see there and ask, like, guys, run it back. Do a delay of 15 seconds. Let me see it again. If you're unsure, and here's the thing.
Well, so instant replay though, is that in Missouri?
They have the means. How much do you pay Matt and all these production guys?
So here's the thing you gotta worry about. So I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, of course.
We do it for this fight, and then there's a couple other fights we don't do it for.
Do it for all of them.
Right.
You have the means. Yep. You have the budget. You have it to not use a tool at your disposal because others might not have it.
You're looking at it from my point of view. I'm meaning from the state point of view. So, NFA, Shamrock.
That's how you write the legislation.
Yeah.
If the tool is at your disposal, if I have, a gun, and I want to defend myself, and the other guy doesn't have a gun, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm not going to use this gun because maybe somewhere out there someone else doesn't have a gun. Fuck that. We have the tools at our disposal. Why would we choose to have an inferior product or to have an erroneous metric of measurement when we have the capabilities to be correct? That I would argue that is literally choosing ignorance, and I would never choose ignorance.
So, but say then you only have it at certain promotions. So is that really fair across the
Yes,
board?
still is. Because the budget dictates.
Okay.
Or the state has to take it. If you have the means...
Careful how because you can eliminate certain things depending how we word things. That's why it's like...
Very fair, very fair. But what I'm saying is that you don't have to... Legislation doesn't have to be created in this like broad sense of like, this is what is now the minimum. It is what is at the minimum based at your disposal. If you have a photographer, one thing, right? If you have a full videography team who's running this live and can easily do a replay as they're doing all night, take it into consideration.
So the reason why I'm saying be careful like that. So let's go back to the first matchmaking I ever did for the Han. So let's pull back to the first matchmaking at the Han gym that we talked about. One reason why we didn't do another fight was I had pancreation on there because Zoe Han was a
pancreation style fighting
for kids. It was for
open
kids.
palm.
So like that. Well, they had the gloves, no face hits. So for the kids, there was no face hits. They had to wear the gloves. They had to wear the shin pads. And
so basically fighting, but.
Yeah, and I read there was a big pancreation there was an organization making its rounds through the U.S. for kids, basically kids MMA, the best you could do with protecting their brains, So submissions were fine, and it depended on the age on the rules. So we brought in.
Oh, so when you say gloves, you mean MMA gloves?
Those for some of them for the teens.
Okay.
But no face hitting still.
Gotcha.
And they still had to wear headgear just in case.
Jesus.
Though I'll be honest with you, I don't. To my personal opinion, headgear hurts me more sometimes than it.
I could do a podcast on how headgear is actually worse.
Exactly.
Right?
So, but either way, they were trying to protect the kids, and I appreciate that. But they still want kids to learn MMA, and that's cool. So we brought in a special organization. We flew in their own ref, and all that. So that costs money too. That's another reason why But the reason why we didn't do another one, shortly after that, someone did legislation to make pancreation illegal in Missouri. It was, yeah. And the fun fact was he knew about I actually reached out to him because I was trying not to burn any bridges. And I was like, hey, we're going to put a promotion on, but I want you to know that we're not challenging you. We're just doing it for the gym. He said, cool.
The second you called him, he took
I know, man. And he said, cool. And he offered me some names of his guys that I could use for the adult version. So the undercard was it was all Amy. I'm going to put that out there. So the undercard was the kids, and then the main card was the adults. Went off great. Adults. Went off great. Within a month, it got illegalized, man, and that's why I was like, we got to be careful when we see legislation.
Well, actually, I will say this: if it happened within a month, then the chances of it being Jesse Finney are actually slim to none.
No, it was Jesse. I do know.
Then he may have been working on it before the fact.
It might have been, yeah.
Because based on the conversation that I had with Tim, it was it was a process to get anything passed. Even the
he knew about it. He
didn't
challenge me on it. So he didn't say but he was one of them that's speaking how pancreation should be illegal to protect the kids and all that. And I was literally watching it Jesse, you just helped me out with a show that,
Yeah, but if it's not illegal at the time.
No, yeah. So
all I'm saying is based on what Tim said, the framework for when legislation is initiated to when it's passed seems to be
And I'm not attacking Jesse.
No, neither.
I want to point that out there.
But when
Jesse
you said that, it's funny that that's the first name I thought.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
If the shoe fits.
So my point was though, the watch legislation because you're going to push promotions out. So it starts off maybe that way, and also they're well, you have to have instant replay, and you're going to lose a lot of these smaller promotions. Again, someone gets
I don't think you should mandate it.
I agree.
Create the legislation as if you have it. If you have this level of production, now the responsibility is on you as the promotion.
But when you plant a seed, people run with that.
Yeah, but to what extent? To say that you can't have a show unless you have this? Well, then if that's the case, then the state's going to have to start
Mm-hmm.
The state will then have to. I'm not saying that you're wrong. You are absolutely correct. This could lead to a domino effect, at least of that.
Because there was a dry spell. I don't know. Did you fight during? I think you should have been fighting during that time. There was a dry spell where a lot of promotions went under, and it was just mainly one or two.
Run that back. When do you mean? Like when Jim Jenkins fell and all that?
So like he fell. There's a bunch of them that fell because of certain certain things that had to be done.
When amateurs
You're
amateurs had to start getting sanctioned by
by the state.
By the way, that was like a direct repudiation to NFA, because if you recall, NFA as it started was a strictly amateur promotion.
Yeah.
Like the first couple of shows, they were just like, we're just doing amateurs to build them up. And, you know, there's an altruism to that. I will speak to this to what I know for a fact. I do not want to speculate. Right. When NFA first started out, they started out as an MMA promotion, strictly amateurs, in order to build people up. They were never looking to be a professional promotion. However, there were powers that be that realized that they were paying taxes on their professional pro-am shows, and they wanted the state to take into consideration that they should also be sanctioning the amateur portion. Now, as a person that doesn't understand any of the lay of the land, I actually agree with that sentiment to an extent, because what's the difference between pro and amateur realistically? Right. 2 more minutes in each round, and then elbows and knees to the head. That's basically it. I can still throw my shin bone to your face, 4-ounce gloves to your face, and if you're not getting paid, I do think that there should be something that
It used to be 7-ounce, if you remember, for amateur.
Oh, back in the day? No, whenever I started, it was all 4. Okay. In fact, you had to bring your own gloves, so if they were 4 or 3.5, you know what I mean?
There's good things about that, yeah. Now that's all regulated. But.
No, but I'm just trying to take like this memory, this trip down memory lane. Okay, so NFA started as a strictly amateur promotion, and then once the powers that be passed legislation to get the state sanctioning extended to amateurs and blood work and all these things as well. I'm not saying that it was a bad thing.
No.
I do think that for the health and the well-being of the fighters, it is actually a net positive. Correct. However, are these extra hurdles added to promotions? Absolutely. And that's honestly like, you know, in a lot of ways, you create your own boogeyman, because now NFA has to do pro-ams. Not has to, but like, if you're already paying the state, if you're already sanctioned, and now you can do it, why not?
There's a rule that if you don't have a pro, it's same-day weigh-ins.
What?
Yeah, so... You are at that risk. Yeah, if you don't have a pro on there, same day weigh-ins.
How?
That's what I've been told.
There's no way that's legal. Because if the goal of the state is to promote fighter wellness and safety, why is not having a pro then generating... this is a genuine question. Adrian, write this down and say
look it
clip.
up, yeah, because I also don't want to put up
not even
fake
look it up.
news.
Not even look it up. Write this down and put clip.
Yeah.
If the legislation is currently that if there is not a pro fight on the card, and if it's just amateur, that same day weigh-ins needs to be taken into consideration, then I would look at Tim Lukhanoff and I would look at Governor Parsons and the State Athletic Commission and say, whatever you're doing is at the detrimental health of the fighters. Because if you don't think these guys are still going to cut weight the same way they do for every other show, you're now putting them in harm's way and not helping them. So if that is how the legislation is currently written, then I am actively using my platform to say you guys are dumb. That is dumb. Change the law.
And that's what I was told. So I could.
And I hope that you were told incorrectly.
I hope I'm wrong with that. But well, I mean the IVs though, that hasn't changed anybody.
Well, the IVs are different because the plastoids in the blood system can also be mistaken for like performance enhancing drugs as well. See, that's completely different. It's actually to prevent PEDs, not necessarily to prevent rehydration.
Okay, so yeah, I thought it was for the weight cut. So then
because it's easier. It's easier to hide certain like steroids using IVs than it is like ingestion or through the shot, because then it goes straight into the blood.
So either I'm right, or I'm gonna get an angry message from Tim. One or the other.
I'm with you, brother. Listen, Tim, I love you.
Yeah.
I want that to be said. However, if that is how the legislation is written, then let us actively use this platform to say that is stupid. Let us change it.
So my point is, be careful how we do legislation, because I do want the fighters safe, but I don't want to like get promotions. As much as it's hard for me as a matchmaker because there's so many, it's good for the fighters.
Lance, it doesn't even have to be.
Ariane.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I have you like expand upon? Actually, that would be a great thing. If you think that it's not safe, why don't you explain? Because most people are not going to understand why you think it's not safe.
What is not safe?
So the if a pro is
same
not
day
on,
weigh-ins,
then same day weigh-ins.
Because you're going to have
to explain that.
Very fair. That's duly noted. The reason why I'm saying that's not safe is the number one metric for CTE is the dehydration of the brain, or the reduction in fluid between the brain and the skull, right? If concussions are internal bleeding or bruising of the brain, actually bleeding would be like a hemorrhage, so that's not CTE, sorry. Just strictly speaking, bruising. That is when the brain hits the inside of the skull due to, whatever blunt force trauma you're applying, whether it's a fist or what have you, the more fluid you have, just like when you're in water, it's harder to throw a punch in water than it is in midair, right? You have more resistance. It's the same thing in the brain. The more dehydrated you are as an individual, the less fluid you have in your cranial capacity. These fighters are going to continue to... I can tell you for myself, if there was same day weigh-ins, I would still be a 35er. I wouldn't give a fuck because at the time I was a fighter. I wasn't thinking about my long-term health. Yeah. I was actively saying I'm here for a good time, not a long time, right? So it's like these fighters will do everything they can to win. The real fighters, the competitors. The other ones, who cares? They're gonna preserve themselves one way or another. But the real fighters are gonna put themselves in harm's way regardless. Absolutely. So if you're telling me that if you don't have a pro fight, that for some reason now you have to have same day weigh-ins, that doesn't even make any sense, like on face value for like fighter safety. For what reason? Why?
It wasn't even with Dr. Munchie. It wasn't even like the CTE part. It was a matter of you're statistically more likely to get a concussion and then more likely to get a concussion again and again, which then longer term leads to like CTE and suicide and all these other things.
Well, the hormonal imbalance based on the brain's damage, and then.
Well, we only can afford about 3 pro fights, and there was a show where all of them fell off, and there was a panic about that. That's how I know about that. There was a panic, so we had to like hurry up and get a pro fight signed last minute.
Or else everyone's got to weigh in the same day.
Weigh in the same day.
If that is the way the legislation is written, then I'm actively stepping in and saying we need to change that legislation yesterday.
Now you got me all scared.
Or at the very least.
Now you got me all scared I could be wrong.
No.
So I'm like,
Here's the thing. Hopefully we are.
Yeah,
hopefully this is all fake news. So like, okay, cool. Because then it's a lot easier to say, hey, we were incorrect than, okay, no, we were right. And now we have to change the way the legislation is written. Because that's insane. It doesn't even make any sense on face value. Why would you do that?
So yeah, but my whole point is like I like that the fighters are safe. That was a good thing that came out. They're definitely safe. That we had Spire and people like that still push for the blood work and all that.
It didn't do it the same way.
No. But I just
it's also keen to point out that a lot of the people from Spire and BMF actually then got hired by the state.
Yep, 100%. It just ended up costing promotions more.
When you don't have the attorney general, when you don't have like the muscle behind the words, it doesn't mean as much.
Right. But then with that comes more money. And that put a lot of promotions down, and I just don't want that again.
Let me put it this way though, dude. If what makes or breaks a promotion is like the taxes they have to pay to the state, like however many thousands of dollars that is, you're an operational detriment to yourself, and you probably shouldn't be doing a promotion.
Like I said earlier, it's for the fighters. The promoters, they're competition to me right now, so we're picking up the same point. So it's like again, it's harder on me, but for the fighters, it's good for them because they have like, let's say you don't get along with a promotion, you don't have to fight more. You got other promotions. Which we see a lot, especially now.
Local promotions definitely. I will agree with you that there was a moment in time where like the local scene was definitely diminished, right? In terms of like
you had basically one and a half.
That's a good way to describe it. It was like Shamrock FC, and then Jared when he was doing his things, and then NFA when they kind of pick up the pieces after he stepped down.
Yeah, and NFA hasn't always been owned by Marlene either. Marlene Kelly.
Yeah,
so,
it was
BJ.
Yes, way back in the day, and then Brad and Marlene bought it out. Yeah.
So
it's good to know your history. And then I would say that Fight Hard was there for a while, direct competitors, but then once the legislation passed on the ticket sales. I still think that that's crazy that like you can't do a free show, but that's like there's like the businessman in me. You know what's funny about like gatekeeping and all these other things is like you get these guys that kind of make their money and kind of set the standard and then like actively bring up the ladder behind them. If there is one thing that I would kind of like love to talk to Tim about if I ever got him on a separate episode is like the logistics and the operations and the business aspect of running a promotion. Because if all these people are doing it for no money, then you cannot continue to think that they're going to do it properly.
Right.
You're running on fumes. So it's like, let's make them profitable. I refuse to believe in a world where you cannot have a profitable promotion and save fighters. You can have both. You can have both. Now we're just arguing about how we get there. And that's fine. That's the conversation to have. But let's stop having this conversation of saying you have to have one or the other.
Well, because a lot of them you see, it's either like Brad and Marlene, they're fans. That's why they do it. Or Absolutely. You have some of them that do it because they're fighters.
Well, listen, dude, Jesse and Rob are fans too.
Yeah.
When you watch them watch fights, they like the fights as well.
I haven't been around them for that aspect. I came in after they've already been.
Sometimes I feel like I'm attacking them. Sometimes I feel like I'm defending them. I don't dislike them. I just dislike a lot of the things.
I have no problems with them at all.
I don't agree with a lot of the actions.
I have one problem with them. One problem. When I became matchmaker in NFA, Shamrock's account blocked me.
Oh, that doesn't shock me.
And that only annoys me because sometimes I like to see the outcome of the fights.
Brother, like Sean Woodson says, oh, I'm petty.
Dude, I would say, like, no, there's still times I'll text Jesse. Sometimes he'll text me wanting to do lunch. Rob, there's been times I've been, Rob wants, he's texted me once or twice about coaching at Finney's. Yeah, so I have nothing, there's
Did they ever approach you about matchmaking?
They've never, no.
No? That's interesting. I was just curious.
No. I've never had those lunches with Jesse, so I don't know what he wants to talk about. So.
Oh, you never went and had lunch with him?
No, he's always talking about let's get lunch, and we just never did. It's one of those like, hey, let's go get lunch, and
funny how that works.
So,
we did a disservice. Man, we're an hour and 40 in, but we've only exclusively talked about matchmaking. And forgive me, and commercial real estate.
That's fine. I don't care.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was like your fighting acumen and career beforehand, because that's actually how you got into this world to begin with, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of fighters, and I know a lot of their stories on how they began, but I truly don't understand yours.
It's weird.
Was it like wrestling that developed into MMA?
No, man. So what happened was I was a kid, like I was young, UFC 1, 2, 3. My dad
VHS,
rented them.
back in the day.
VHS, so kids, VHS is what we had before DVDs, Blu-ray, streaming. My dad brought home 3 VHSs thinking they were wrestling, because I was into pro wrestling as a kid. They were not. They were UFC 1, 2, and I think 4. I don't think it was 3. I feel like we skipped one. And I watched it, and my dad was like, this is not what I thought it was, but I was into it. So Dad's like, all right, we'll see how this goes. And, it was a lot different back then. And I just became a fan. And so my dad's like, all right. So every time he saw a UFC VHS that we hadn't seen, he'd rent it. And that's kind of how I got into it. As I got older, we would get the pay-per-views with my friends and that. And I had wrestled in high school. I did a little bit of karate, things like that, So my friends were like, dude, how do you, and I was calling out moves before they would happen. And then my friends were like, why don't you try this? Like, I don't know, man. And then one day, I got moved to Festus, Missouri. I was assistant branch manager for the branch there. And there was a little gym there, and I didn't want to do a big gym because I was nervous. And so there was a little gym there known, Han MMA. I was like, maybe I'll dabble in that. I'm down here anyway. Maybe after work and go train a couple hours.
How old are you?
I was later later than I should have been. Probably like 24. Yeah. 23, 24.
No wrong time to start.
You get to, you start hitting your 40s like I am, and you kind of forget. All the time blurs together, buddy.
Brother, I'm 31, and
it still blurs together. So I dabbled there, and I'll be honest, I was thinking about using it as a stepping stone to get to a bigger, maybe a Finney's, Finney's MMA. But I ended up falling in love because it was a small group, and we were training that dingy, leaking in the hole. Well, we built that gym up to a really nice gym in Arnold. I don't know if you remember that. You guys
got a full facility. And
everything. We built that up, and I was so proud of that. I was super loyal. Well, I got a little ahead of myself. So I was training there. My wrestling was really good. I started picking up the jiu-jitsu really well. So Kevin made me an assistant ground coach. And I went off and did, but he said, you got to go do a NAGA. So
NAGA tournament meeting.
NAGA tournament, so National American Grappling Association. So grappling. I said, okay. Me and one of the other coaches, we went to Indiana, and we did it there. And this was back when NAGA actually had tournaments. It wasn't like you beat one guy and you won. I had to beat 4 guys and I won. And so we called him up, and he goes, all right, you're the new assistant ground coach. Well, I wasn't training in gi or anything, so I'm not built for anything. And you had a lot of guys come in like, what belt are you? I'm like, I'm not. So,
brother, I had to be reminded that I was a blue belt.
Yeah.
So I
get you. Yeah. So I'm like, whatever. So if that's what you're looking for, that's not here. We are an MMA gym at that point.
Steve Berger is one of the best grapplers I know, and he's a white belt.
Yeah. We trained together a lot, and actually, he's one of them that I always thought he was overrated, and then we actually locked up.
And you roll with him, and you're like, oh, that guy's legit.
No, he's good. He's legit. Yeah. And I to this day I take up for him. But yeah, no. So one NAGA, he talked me into doing a fight. He's like, just do one for me. I was like, you know what? I love the sport. I'll do it. So I did it. I won pretty easily. And so I was kind of like, oh, this ain't that bad. And he's like, all right, now you got to keep doing it till you lose. I was like, what? So this is my career.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
I fought once a year because he would have to talk me into it.
Well, Jesus.
Yeah, I don't have that many fights. I have, I think, 10 altogether. And so
between amateur and pro.
Between amateur and pro, yeah. And I ended up 8-2, 9-1 in my head, and I'll talk about that. But so I'm doing all that. I would get there. I go 7-0, and Kevin decides he's like, you know what? Hey, let's. So I had won an amateur title. But back then you could win amateur titles. They weren't. I'm proud of it, but at the same time, they were a little easier. You could go to a rinky-dink show and win them.
Well, there were more shows back in the day, so it was easy to be a champion of something.
I won. It was a good crowd, but I won it in a parking lot. So there's that. And so he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna turn you pro."
You're kind of underselling it, but it's also keen to point out that this was years ago. So
it was.
It's when MMA was nascent, dude. I fought at biker bars and shit like that. I bring that up because I don't want these fighters to look at the Armory or look at Ameristar Casino or whatever or Family Arena. Dude, what fighting has become is so insane in a good way. Could you imagine when you were younger fighting at an Ameristar Casino or the Armory, or if you go to FAC fighting in their stadium and arena there? Amateurs are treated like professionals now.
I'm sure a lot of our fighters will tell you I sound like that old man back in my day, because I'll be, look at this, guys. Honestly, take it in. I know it's like your first fight,
dude,
but take it in. I go, because I was fighting in caves.
I fought at Shady Jack's outside for my fifth pro fight or fifth amateur fight.
Yeah, the Shady Jack fights. Yeah, I cornered there. I never fought there, but there was a
cave.
It
was fun. Don't get me wrong. I love that I did
the cave in Crystal City. Fought in there. Yeah.
Dude, you fought wherever there were fights
because that's what you had to do. Yeah. And then you didn't get the casino.
You compete.
You didn't get a casino or a venue like the Armory till you went pro. And even then,
no, they didn't even exist when I was
you're lucky.
When we first started, think about it really.
Lumiere
was the best. Lumiere was the best, or Fight Me back in the day at the Family Arena. Yep. But that was with Kenny Nowling and all that bullshit that then spiraled into Fight Hard, right?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we had it better or worse.
No.
All I'm saying is the fighters now should really appreciate the promotions they have, and more specifically the venues that they have in order to compete. Because if I had the Armory to sell tickets to, fucking forget it, dude. Yeah. I was selling tickets 30, 40 tickets to the Heart of St. Charles Banquet Center.
Yes.
Or 30 tickets to Shady Jack's Biker Bar.
Heart of St. Charles, that was a nice venue for back then.
Yeah, back then I was that was a premier venue.
So, so I go 7-0 as an amateur. Coach says, okay, I'm going to turn you pro. I'm like, cool, because maybe at least I'll make some money. Not as much people think.
Do you mind if I ask what you made for your pro debut? I'll tell you. Yeah.
Actually, I did good for my pro debut compared to a lot of people. I did good 600.
You did better than me. I did 5 and 5, 500.
See, that's actually good though too, because they were 3 and 3, 4 and 4 back.
Dude, Shamrock tried to sign me for 300 to show, 300 to win, and I was like, "There's no way." And I remember I thought
that's how I got more out of Shamrock, because Shamrock tried to give me their second fight contract, and I said I made this much the first one. They're like, "All right, we'll bump you up 100." I will give them this credit. The amount of money that I made for the Bashy fight was really good. Yeah.
But starting out, it was...
My last Shamrock fight was decent. I have no ill will against them.
Granted, it was also the culmination of my local career, so it's of course it was good. Yeah. It's at that point, I was very expensive.
No, they've always taken care of me, and that's why I don't have a problem with Jesse or Rob. We're competitors now, so sometimes the lines get blurred.
Do they, though?
So, again, I have... we've talked about this. I have no ill will against them. I still would, again, if they text or call me, I take it. That's how it would be.
The only thing I don't like is how Jesse took Jared to collections. That's it.
Yep.
Garnish his wages. That's it. Outside of that, he's never
done me
wrong.
If Jesse calls me, I would listen. But I am loyal to Brad Marlinks. They're not just they're not just like my boss. I'm doing that in quotations for those that don't watch the video. They're friends. They're friends too. So I'm loyal to them. So I'll have the conversation with you, but I am loyal to them.
In a lot of ways, it feels like Shamrock's like the old lion, and NFA is like this new up-and-coming cub kind of thing. I'm not saying that that's one's going to take the other, but I do feel like in a lot of ways, Shamrock is kind of consistent. If you've been to one, you've been to all of them, where NFA is definitely still figuring it out. A lot of growing pains, if you want to be honest with everybody, but at the same time, I mean, Brad and Marlene care, just like Jesse and Rob care, but it's different experiences. Mm-hmm. It's different experiences, for good, bad, and all the in between.
So I turned pro. I have a dominant pro debut. There was a lot of hype on me, so that was good. I lived up to that hype. Unfortunately, then after that, the hype's gone. Now I'm the top dog. I'm expected to win the fights. So I get Shane Shimodi, and so he knew I had good ground game. So a lot of people don't realize I can strike, because everybody hears my grind, but they don't realize if you look at the paper, because back then we didn't have a lot of video. You got to go to the paper. A lot of those submissions came because I rocked them and they took me down.
They shot for a takedown, you got a submission.
Yeah, or that, yeah. And so he planned a whole striking camp, and I ended up out striking him, and I ended up hitting him with a body shot, like a straight liver kick, and he folds up, falls. I hit 2 more punches. The ref, I'm not going to say who it was because, again, I don't want to call anybody out, comes in, pushes me off of him. I'm throwing my hands up in the air like
Thinking you won.
coaches are trying to get in. But the gate guy's like, wait, he hasn't given us the call. And he goes, neutral corner. So yelling neutral corner. I tank. I go, what? And I look over.
You say a nut shot?
He said nut shot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what? And I checked out. And that's on me. I checked out. That's on me. So instantly I'm deflated. Shane knew, and I've had this conversation with him, so I'm not just BSing. Shane knew he was hurt. So he bum rushed me as soon as they said fight. He got on top of me. I think he said he broke his hand on one of, I blocked with an elbow or something. He had broke a hand. So he's just doing like kind of hitting me, but not hard. But I wasn't blocking it. So they got stopped. Well, Shane sent me a picture he found. I don't think it was a professional one. I think it was from a fan, and it's a perfect shot of me hitting him right in the sternum.
Liver.
Yeah, like right there, and it's a front kick, and you see him going like, and it's like he was about to throw a kick, and that was my counter. I was front kicking him off of me, and he goes, "Dude," he's like, "If that ref would not have called that, you had me." He's like, "I was done." He's like, "I could not."
At least he's honest about it.
And yeah. Now the reason why I'm not upset about that now is he's passed away since then.
Oh.
So I'm glad he got to have that. My career didn't take off like I thought it would. Not that I had any big dreams. I thought maybe like well, we talked about it. I was happy. I would have been happy being Bellator, and so like I'm glad he got it. Hindsight, but I didn't see that as a loss. So Kevin goes, "Are you done?" I said, "No, I don't think I lost. I don't feel like I lost. On paper I lost. Shane got the win, but I don't feel like I lost. So I took another fight."
Implying that you really would quit if you got one loss.
Yeah, that's what he thought. He thought I would because I didn't like fighting. I didn't like it. I don't like hurting people. I didn't like the anxiety of the buildup. I didn't like any of it. I didn't like the stress of it.
Did you like training?
I did.
Okay,
that's
so
why I trained.
Training,
yeah.
You like.
Yeah.
That's harming people. That's hurting people.
Yeah,
Did
but
you spar?
if I hurt them, I can pull off. Like if me and you were sparring and I know I rock you, I can pull back. In a fight, if I do that, I did the one time and look what happened to me. And also the anxiety. I don't know how you felt, but the worst moments of the fight is that buildup, like not up to weigh-ins, because once you get weigh-ins, you're just happy to be able to eat. It's sitting in the back, waiting to go on, especially when you start getting to you're the main event, co-main event.
Yeah, you get there at 5 to fight at
Bro,
11.
yeah, and then you're. If I was an anxiety filled, I go out there acting like,
Well, everybody was shitting their pants.
Right.
Everybody was shitting
I don't
their
like that
pants.
feeling, so I didn't like that. So
That's funny because I never felt more alive.
Yeah.
You don't. When you
that's
look,
the difference in us, though. That's your wiring.
so you looked at it as like,
Why am I putting myself?
why
through
am I
this?
putting yourself where maybe I looked at myself like, fuck yeah, time to go. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was also scared shitless myself because it's like I don't want to
I
lose.
think everybody.
I don't want to
they're
get
lying
knocked out.
themselves if they're
There's two types
You're
of
scared
fear.
about something.
Yeah, there's two types of fear. Fear of getting hurt.
Yep.
This is the wrong line of
Yep.
work for you. Fear of losing. That's everybody. Anybody that goes in there and doesn't fear losing, they're lying to you. Everyone does.
Part of that was it. So I had this horrible feeling. I did not want to actually seriously hurt somebody. I did not want to be that guy.
You and I are different.
Yeah. So there's that. The other one also too is I did have a lot of hype in my amateur career, and I was afraid to lay an egg. That's why after I got the first pro done, I was like, all right, we're going. But then after that, it was like I should win.
Now
so
you're the favorite.
Now I'm the favorite. So then I end up going against Charles. Is it Charles Johnson? I think it's Charles Rogers, not big Charles Rogers. He's a smaller guy from Colorado, and I rock him. It starts off, we're trading. We're both striking. I rock him with a head kick. I seen him bubble. I run into an overhand right. Remember nothing else, but it went almost the whole round. I watched the video this day, and I'm throwing up submissions. Don't remember crap.
Meaning you got hit with something, and then when you try to recollect the fight,
I
you
don't
don't remember any of it.
So that's
Yet
all
there is
instinct.
video footage
Of it
of
going.
you fighting
Yeah.
that you just don't recall.
It's all.
Pretty sure that's brain damage.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
God bless.
All muscle memory though. That hey, I had the muscle memory going. I was throwing up arm bars, triangles, but he wasn't passing. He finally got to a position. He starts hitting me again, and like right before the end of the round, I think the ref stopped it. I don't remember. I remember what I do remember is I'm in the corner, and one of my coaches is rubbing the ice on the back of my neck, and I'm getting amped up ready for round 2.
And no, the fight's
And
over.
the fight's over. And it wasn't until I look up and I see my opponent running around the cage with their hands up. I look over, and Coach Greenlee shook his head no. And I take the ice pack off and I slam it on the ground. I was like, "Are you fucking with me?" And he said, "No, buddy." And I was like, and so I got up and I congratulated him, And after that, I was like,
Have you ever been knocked out before? Like, I'm not talking about in a fight. But I'm talking about like in training or anything.
in training, once I was sparring with Kevin, and he didn't know he rocked me because I kept coming forward. And it was one of my teammates go, Kevin, step out of the way. And he stepped out of the way, and I kind of walked past him. So Kevin's like, oh, God. So he's like, that's the only other time. And Kevin was a lot bigger than me, too. So I never had that before, like, in that aspect. I saw Kevin was my coach, so I saw him as like a God kind of figure anyway. You kind of see your coaches as like, those guys.
He's the shit.
Yeah. So that never, but yeah, that. And then I drooled on, I never just drool when I sleep, and I drooled on my pillow. I started drooling on my pillow after that fight. And I said, I'm 33. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't want, and the CTE starts, maybe not necessarily CTE as we know it, but the brain damage thing started coming out.
Well, there's like long term and then short term, right?
Yeah. And, that stuff started coming out around the same time. And so I was kind of like, I got this great career.
Meaning you were starting to see a difference in the quality of your life.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was like, I've never drooled when I slept. And then I started remembering when I threw up for a month. I was like, man, you know what? I got a great career.
The juice is no longer worth the squeeze.
No, so I'm about to tell Kevin I'm going to retire. I get a phone call. Hey, how would you feel like to be on Bellator? That's a perfect swan song. That's all I ever wanted. Yeah, let's do this, for sure. Cool. AJ Cisco. Awesome. That's somebody, like, we both are known as ground guys, that should be fun. So I'm training. AJ unfortunately gets cancer, and yeah, it's horrible. I can't fault him for pulling out. I was like, nah, dude, I get that.
So yeah, it's one of the rare times where everyone's like, hey.
They didn't have a replacement. That's okay, fine. Shit happens, right? Bellator comes back. Hey, you want to try it again? Absolutely. AJ, let's do this. I don't know what happened this time, but he had to pull out. We lost it again. I, at this point, it's trained probably almost 2 years.
Without fighting.
And I'm like, why am I doing this, man? So no, I guess at this point I'm about 33. So I was 31. So now I'm about 30 because I retired when I was 33 from fighting. I was like, I'm done. And coach was like, yeah, I get that. He's like, because I put hard camps in because it's Bellator. I do not want to make a butt of myself on Spike TV. So, and then I get as I think we talked about, I get a message. I think it's not necessarily a couple months later, but maybe even the next year or something. AJ's like, let's go, we're gonna do it. And I said,
brother, that
no,
train
we're not,
has...
buddy. Yeah, I was like, no, man, I'm retired. He's like, what? He's like, oh, I thought they said you were in. I was like, no, I'm not in, buddy. I go, also, no offense, like, we're gonna do it on Bellator. You're asking me to do it on a local promotion now. Nothing against local promotions, but I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Can I tell you those are the two variables about me coming back? Because a lot of people are like, you could still do this, you could still do that. And I get that, but it's like, I don't want to cut weight. Yeah. And then for what? What's the opportunity cost for the time that I'm giving us out? It's no longer financially worth it.
No.
Do I want to fight? I'm sure you get the itch every now and again. Do you?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. You'll watch a fight and you're like, damn, I wish I was still in that. You know what I mean? And
there's
I will.
2 times. One that we talked about off air. I'm not going to bring that up. But that time, I'll sign that contract. And there's a time too, like I'll see some of my friends or like old teammates, and I'll be like, man, yeah, that was awesome. But then I put myself back down to reality, like, well, hold on, buddy. Like that weight cut, we're not going back to 35. No way. No. 55 might be even a pipe dream at this point.
Brother, so. I think the exact same series of thoughts go through my head. Like, I got it.
Yep.
I'm not saying 135 again. I don't even know if I want to cut and discipline myself to 45. So then what, 55? And then when I'm fighting 200-pound guys that are cutting down,
it, yeah. I'm looking probably more like 170.
Dude, Kirk Huff was on here, and me and him made a verbal agreement. They're like, I agree to fight you if you don't train for it. If you promise me you won't train for it, I'll fight you.
Let's do our walking weight. Well, we got to be close, but do our walking weights and let's not train. Yeah, buddy. Yeah. Then for sure. Yeah.
But then how good's the product going to be? A bunch of pudgy old men.
Well, hey, I still feel we can give them 5 seconds of hell.
Now you sound like all my exes.
Oh, hey-o. So that's how it ended, and that's why sometimes I get annoyed because I fought back when the records weren't kept good and everybody thinks I hadn't had many fights. And
do you care about what people think?
I didn't until this last time because of the situation.
Oh, because it got brought up. Who the fuck?
No. Normally when they say that, I just laugh. I'm like, dude, I got the people. Like you talk to any of the coaches that they know who I am.
Yeah.
It was this time because
it's the people of merit.
It was this time because this person went after my family.
Yeah.
Made it personal.
Yeah, but person's a loser.
Right, but then they brought that up, and I was already pissed. So then it hit me.
So if I may, maybe emotions ran
It was
a little
emotion,
high,
100% emotion, yeah.
and maybe the logical part of your brain subsided for a little bit. But if I could be honest with you, I remember when I was done, everyone else thought I was a winner. Like, dude, Arion, are you kidding me? Look at your career. I thought I was a loser. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, we can be our own worst critic because we hold ourselves to a higher standard. Yeah. And I think that's, personally, I think that's the way it should be. If other people are holding you to a higher standard than yourself, that's not conducive to a healthy man.
No, because sitting here right now telling you, like, it doesn't bother me. And I actually, now that I'm more cool, collected, it doesn't make sense at all for me. Like, there was one coach that literally, like, when he reached, like, what I actually got was the love out of that. When people seen it happening, I had so many, and thank you to all of you. I don't want to call anybody out individual because I don't want to cause any heat with anybody, but I had 5 different gyms reach out to me and said they would train me for this fight. Like, they would love to have me come in the gym and all that, and like, so that made me feel good. And I had so many people.
But you don't want to.
I don't.
If you ever did go back, could you imagine a worse reason than like negative affirmation?
I don't even want to coach anymore. So why would? That's my point. Why would I even do that? So it's. But people like
you're still in the game though through matchmaking, so like there's a part of you that
I
still
love the sport.
To it.
I've always loved the sport, and that's what I meant. That's why I trained. That's why I just never was a fighter. I wasn't a fighter, you know. I fought, but I wasn't really a fighter.
I don't agree with that statement,
and that's fair. But you
may not call yourself a fighter, Lance, but you went in there and you won so many fights. You can't say you're not a fighter.
But there's also, I want to thank you and like the Jordan Dowdies, people that I respect that came to me and go, dude, what are you doing? Like, you don't need this, you know, like. You're fine. Like, don't get sucked into this. Like, So like that's when I realized. So it was a bad moment. I had a break. I had a lapse of who I was. I thought about it, but good came out of it because of all the gyms and all the fighters that reached out to me and be like, dude, stop.
Why do you say you're not a fighter? Because you didn't like fighting?
I didn't like fighting. Yeah.
It doesn't make so.
Well, the whole saying, you're a martial artist or you're a fighter. You remember that old saying?
No.
So when I was coming through, like the guys that didn't really like fight. Like, and what I mean by that, they were martial artists, yeah. And I do see myself more as a martial artist because I love the sport. I love the martial arts. I love being respectful. Like, you know, we talked about. There was only one opponent I ever went against that the words were real. Other than that, it was always respect. We had beers afterwards, and that's who I was.
Yeah, but you can still be a cordial and honorable and all these other things and still be a fighter. When you say you're not a fighter, I'm trying to understand why. Because you were scared beforehand?
No.
Okay.
No.
So then why weren't you a fighter? Because you didn't want to cause harm?
Yes.
Okay, you're an altruistic fighter. Cool, but you're still a fighter.
Like if we have an argument, I would try to talk us down rather than us throw blows. Yeah.
Same, but I'm still a fighter.
Yeah.
I'll still fucking go. If you hit me in the face, I'll fuck you up. If I hit you in the face, will you try to talk me out of it?
Depending where we're at.
Really?
So I have this big fear that like I end up like people are filming, I end up clipping you and your part gets caught out or doesn't get caught and I get in a bunch of trouble.
Oh, okay, so you're a very cognizant fighter.
Yes.
Fair, but don't say you're not a fighter.
It might be, so maybe it's a generation difference.
You don't get to go to pro and call yourself not a fighter.
Maybe it's a generation difference because there is, again, back then those are the people that would fight all the time. No, I'll take this fighter. I fought once a year, remember?
Those are dummies.
I agree, but
if you're truly anytime, any place, anywhere, I call you an idiot because it's like then you have to think of the legal ramifications. There's not a person on this planet I would not swing on if they hit me. But yeah, there's always like the ramifications of actions, right? Yeah. I'm not looking for confrontation, but I'm not going to shy from it as well. But the reason I'm harping on this is because you had a successful amateur career and went pro. Maybe the career didn't take the trajectory you wanted to, but you don't get to say that you're not a fighter.
That's right.
Because you fought and you won and you beat a lot of guys, and it's a disservice and disrespect to everybody that you beat calling yourself not a fighter. You are.
No, now you're making me feel bad.
Yeah,
I'm down in myself. I don't want to down anyone else.
I think you are a fighter. Maybe you're not the fighter you thought you were. Yeah. I wasn't the fighter I thought I was, but we're still fighters.
I appreciate it. Yeah, okay. No, I can't argue. No, from that point of view.
But what do I know?
No, my generation, if you didn't fight, like, because I fought once a year, I wasn't really a fighter as a martial artist.
It's people that never fight in their life, brother.
Yeah.
So I always say that like there's the guys that like the forever trainers. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that, but not fighters. If you step in the cage once, regardless of how much you've trained, you've fought. You're a fighter.
That's why I laugh. Like technically, my career lasted so long, but I'm only 8-2. But it's like it's because I only fought once a year. So
yeah. Maybe I also have a different perspective on this because I'm out of the game now. So like I look at it like a little bit like less emotionally, more logically. And it's like, okay, words have meaning and they have definitions. So like, what is it? Did you fight? Yeah, you're a fighter. The whole premise of like the martial artist versus all this, if you want to be a good fighter, chances are you are a martial artist. So that's where I'll say that. I just don't want you to disrespect yourself, because I think you came up in a different time, and maybe people, fuck around and forgot, but doesn't necessarily. And this is the reason I emphasize this so much is you can make as much money as you want. You can do all these other things and all these other accolades, but no one can ever take the things that you've done, right? You fought. You can't buy that. I could be a millionaire, a trillionaire, whatever, but if I don't get in that cage and fight, I've never done it.
Well, and to your defense, like I told you off camera, for the right situation, I still got one rodeo left in me. So I guess maybe you're right.
Even today?
For the right circumstance.
What does that mean, though? Money, like the stage? When you say the right circumstance, what series of events?
I mostly say that on the fact, like, if someone thinks they can just call me out because I'm not going to do anything. Doesn't necessarily mean in the cage. It just means, like, don't think.
Yeah, as a man.
Yeah, don't
challenge
think,
your manhood.
Yeah, don't think that something won't. Well, kind of like Kurt said, he'll fight him in the front yard. He may be retired, but that's a whole different aspect. But
Kurt regarding
Kurt Huff,
Josh Augustine.
Kurt Huff and Josh Augustine, yeah. So.
Yeah, that was an interesting.
Tried to make it happen.
Did you?
I did.
With Kirk and Josh?
Yeah. They both agreed.
Okay.
Just not on weight.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, Josh can't make 45 anymore.
Well, wasn't that Josh walking around weight would have made Kurt have to cut quite a bit.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, so hold up.
I'm sure it's an out clause from somebody.
Hold up.
Yep.
Are you saying after all that shit talked, then weight class was the reason it didn't get accepted?
Yeah. And it was mutual, so I'm not throwing shade at either one.
Because Kirk doesn't want to fucking cut weight. I wouldn't want to cut weight.
But I'm not sure. I'm just saying, I'm not throwing shade at either one.
You're talking all shit on me. I'll fight you at 190.
Not throwing shade at either one. They both agreed that
you're a very good neutral party.
Here's what happened. When I realized I gave them both 2 chances, and they both were, like, complaining about the weight, I said, I'm moving on. And I just dropped it. I was like, this ain't going to happen.
You're not trying to fit a square in a circle.
This ain't going to happen. You guys, you're going to have to settle your feud elsewhere, because obviously you're just going to keep talking, and it's not going to happen. So,
We're at 2 hours and 5 minutes. There are a couple more topics we could talk about that we haven't even touched on, but I don't want to rush the conversation because I think, and I'll be broad with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're good fatherly / what I consider true masculinity topics, and I don't want to do the disservice of trying to rush a conversation on topics of like being a stepfather or taking ownership and responsibility and discipline for your life. Just know that
life-changing stuff.
Yeah. Just know that if you ever want to be on this podcast again, to not necessarily talk about the matchmaking, and talk about fatherhood. And honestly, I didn't know your line of work. I'm much more inclined to go into the financial sector too. If you want to, brother, I'm down to clown. Yeah. Just know that.
Well, I know you have a lot of bookings, and so whenever you want to run it back, when you're,
would you want to be on again?
Yeah, 100%. I don't mind doing this.
I'm sorry.
Honestly, I really enjoyed our talking. Yeah.
Forgive me,
especially because we didn't really get to know each other till recently. So that's
the first time I actually sat down. We didn't sit down, but the first time I talked to you legitimately was this prior NFA.
I don't think either one of us could have sat down at that point. Yeah, we were both so hyped up afterwards. So, but no, that's when I really was like, you weren't what I had put in my head from all your fighting career.
Can I ask because you're not the first person that said that. I'm just genuinely curious. What did you think of me before and then after?
I really thought you were an arrogant asshole.
Still am.
Yeah, but there's more to you.
I'm like an ogre. I have layers.
Well, just like as we talked about, I'm not always as nice as I come off as either. There's certain times you can catch me that I can, behind closed doors pop off. So,
I think
we all have multiple personalities. Let's be real.
I don't know if it's multiple personalities. I just think it's perspective and like the context, right? So it's like what is a person? You cannot take an isolated incident and determine a person's worth or value on these things. It's how they're reacting to a certain thing. So it's over the course of multiple interactions. Like if you have to have multiple conversations, I think it's really hard to hide bullshit out of like a 2-hour conversation, right? You have surprised me with a lot of your maturity and a lot of your logical thinking. Simultaneously, I can tell you're a fighter because there's still some sides of you that are like.
I do have there's still an ego there, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is you actually, and it's been recent, I had a little bit of growth because I sat there, because the reason why I thought you were ignorant because of how the crap you would talk.
Yeah.
But I thought back, how much crap did I actually talk in my head, or how confident was I? I just didn't say it on camera. Yeah. So why is it fair for me to judge you for doing it on camera when I did have the same thoughts? Don't think there wasn't time. I looked at my opponent like, okay. Or he'd be talking about, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you are. So yeah, it's just I didn't do it on camera. That's the only difference, and so there's no reason for me to judge you. And now that honestly, since we talked too, we got more probably similar than we do not. So
I think
who am
that's
I to
most
judge
people.
you? Yeah, so it's not fair for me to judge you off of video, off of a online persona. So, and actually now you're very, I don't see your mouth off hardly at all. So
it's not about fighters.
Family.
Get me on politics or taking steroids before fights, and I'll lose my shit still.
Yeah. But I do think growing up, maturity, and I think family changes us. So.
I'm gonna end this podcast with one more question, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
It's something that's kind of near and dear to myself, but I want to ask a fellow fighter this. Mm-hmm. So you say you're done with fighting. Mm-hmm. You could be enticed into it.
Yeah. Right circumstance.
Do you ever...
Dana, call me. No, I'm kidding.
Do you ever think of yourself as lesser than because now you're just a normal person?
No. Really? I know I'm not the dog I used to be. I'm older. I stepped away. I don't train like I used to. I think here's how I really think about things. I think the younger me would whoop the crap out of me because of who they are, but I think the older me could win off of being more intelligent, off of like if I could take the knowledge I have now and put it in a younger body, I'm sure a lot of people say this. But yeah, if I could have the skills and the athleticism I had when I was younger with the knowledge of the fight game I have now, oh buddy.
Do you want to know why I give Mike Rogers so much credit and so much respect and love?
Because he's a bear that would squish you?
Not just that. Not just because of his physical acumen. Correct me. Yeah. He's just such a humble guy for all the things that he's achieved.
Yeah, so when I went pro, I cross-trained at the CMMA, and me and Benoist were really close back in the day. I still consider him a good friend, but we just don't hang out, Yeah. I would still be there for him if he needed me, but we used to hang out a lot back then. So when I went pro, I was the top ground guy at Han MMA, so I needed something because I was going pro, and so we worked out a deal that Benoist would come train a couple of days at Han, and I'd go up there and train, and it worked out great. And then we got affiliated with Higa Machado, so I had to stop that
because of Vaghi.
Yeah. So
jiu-jitsu has its pros and its cons.
We tried getting affiliated with Vaghi first because of my relationship with them, but Kevin didn't get along with the regional person.
Wow.
So Mike Rogers wanted it, Rodrigo wanted it, but there was a person that was in charge of the Arnold area that Kevin Hunt didn't get along with, so he would had to have ran it by him, and it just.
I can't roll my eyes hard enough.
Egos, yeah. So
there are many good things about martial arts. Mm-hmm. There are many things that still need to get the kinks ironed out. But Lance, thank you so much for coming in and talking to me and being on Easy Talk. I hope this was what you thought it would be.
I wasn't sure coming in because again we only sat down after a few drinks and talked, so I wasn't sure.
Here's a little behind the scenes thing. Was there any prep?
No.
Because some people are like, you're fucking...
No.
Dude, no prep, right?
No.
Just hey, these are some of the things I want to talk about.
We talked a little bit about family because your lovely wife and daughter showed up, so there was a little family talk. That was about it, but no, other than that, we just winged it, yeah.
So. Lance Declue, I appreciate you, my man.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.
So.